Time passed very fast. Without even realizing it, another 2.5 months passed. The whole dying Al continent was covered in a blanket of snow. The temperature has dropped significantly. The lakes, rivers, and ponds were frozen. It was the ordinary class people that suffered the most during the winter season. The cold, harsh winter made their lives very difficult. If one has to specifically talk about the Eastern Empire, then compared to the last winter, this winter, the ordinary people are having a much better time. At least the Eastern Emperor guaranteed a stable supply of food, and that is also at a cheap price. Usually, during the months of winter, food prices increase by 100%, sometimes even 200 to 300%. This happens because the entire dying Al continent is covered in layers of snow, and farming becomes extremely difficult. Also in the months of winter, it is extremely difficult to rely on hunting. Even fishing becomes very difficult. The entire dying Al continent has to rely merchants from other continents for their food supply. However, this year, while ordinary people were expecting to see the prices of food rise, contrary to what they were expecting, food prices became even cheaper. This left many confused. Even the foreign merchants who had bought their food supplies with the intention of making a huge profit this winter were left dumbfounded. What happened? Why did the food become cheaper instead of becoming even pricier? Very few knew the answer. In fact, it was the Eastern Empire that was taking initiative to sell food at a cheaper price to its neighboring kingdoms. Both the Thera kingdom and the Storm Al dynasty, both factions, solved their food crisis with the help of the Eastern Empire. This did not just stop there. The Southern Fire Dragon Empire, which now had become a territory of the Eastern Empire, also enjoyed these benefits. In previous years, the people of the southern region would see a sharp rise in food prices. But this year, food prices dropped and became cheap. The Eastern Empire not only had enough food for its southern territory, but the empire also had enough food for its neighboring small kingdoms. Aditya made sure to provide enough food to those small kingdoms that shared borders with their southern territory. Aditya did this to let them know that the Eastern Empire is different from the Southern Fire Dragon Empire, which regularly bullied them. He did make his stance clear to the whole world. By helping out these small kingdoms, Aditya made it clear that the Eastern Empire wants peace and was ready to take the initiative for it. The only empire in the southern region that did not get the Eastern Empire supply is the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Although no public statement was given regarding this action made by the Eastern Empire, many guessed that since the Eastern Empire is not taking any initiative to create peace with the Northern Frost Dragon Empire and instead taking a neutral stance, the Northern Frost Dragon Empire might be invaded by the Eastern Empire in the future. Or maybe the Eastern Empire is not interested in getting involved in the ongoing throne succession political fight. Aditya also has helped the Echo Dominion Empire. Although he knew that the Echo Dominion Empire would be able to afford high-cost food from foreign merchants, Aditya went out of his way to help the Echo Dominion Empire. The foods that the Echo Dominion Empire bought from the Eastern Empire were much cheaper. Aditya did this to establish a close connection with the Echo Dominion Empire. By doing this, he was also increasing his soft power and influence within the dying Isle. Aditya's aim was to build a powerful image of the Eastern Empire so that in the future, if any faction wants to attack his empire, they would have to think twice. Aditya, what are you planning on doing today? Rhea walked behind Aditya. Rhea, I am adding runic enchantment to my adamantite doom blade. Aditya replied without looking at Rhea. He was very focused on his work. He didn't even notice when Rhea approached him. After 20 days of constant practice and learning, with the help of the 4-star rune notes that the mutant Fire Ant Queen, Scarlet, had given him, Aditya finally managed to upgrade his rune Monarch class to 4th order. Without those 4-star rune notes, Aditya wouldn't have become a 4-star rune master. It was extremely difficult to become a 4-star rune master without any help. This is exactly why there were number 4-star rune masters in the continents of West Nia and Dying Isle. Aditya was the first and only 4-star rune master in the Dying Isle continent. Of course, he wouldn't reveal this to the public. Only the people close to him know this. Every faction needs a rune master. Without a rune master, a faction wouldn't have defensive arrays to protect their cities or teleportation arrays, which makes traveling super easy and saves a lot of time. If a kingdom wants to become an empire other than having a large territory, the kingdom must also find a 3-star rune master to build various kinds of arrays. However, the number of 3-star rune masters is very limited. If an empire has even one 3-star rune master, it would be considered a huge thing. As for 4-star rune masters, no one would even think that outside of the main continent there would be any 4-star rune master on the other 6 continents. Usually, the factions that don't have any rune master would have no choice but to hire one. And hiring a 3-star rune master is beyond expensive. Rhea sat beside Aditya and watched him as he elegantly drew runes on his black sword. No matter how many times she watches him drawing runes, she always feels very peaceful. Her mind becomes calm. She feels when he draws runes, his serious face only adds more charm to his handsomeness. She could forever keep looking at his face. For the next few minutes, no one spoke. Rhea watched Aditya's face as he drew runes. Compared to before, he has gotten twice faster. Each time he drew a runic word on the black sword, the runic word would glow in crimson red before the glow slowly faded away. Where is Julia? Aditya asked without pausing. His hands moved like water. Each of his strokes were elegant and very smooth. Sister Julia is in her lab. She is currently making a new kind of potion from the herbs that she has grown in the garden. Aditya slightly nodded his head. After about 10 minutes of silence, Aditya finally put the pen that was made out of gold and crystal down on the floor. He then looked at Rhea, who was looking at him with a smile. Thank you for helping me all this time. The only reason that the Eastern Empire was able to bring down the food prices is because of your help. As I said before, there is no need to thank me. I happy to help you. Ria's cheek slightly flushed while looking at Aditya. In these 2.5 months' time, Ria and Aditya have grown closer. Aditya has learned many new things about the elf princess. As the goddess of nature, Ria has the power to manipulate plants and also accelerate plants' growth rate. After returning from the ethereal empire, Aditya and Watson were thinking about how could bring down the food prices. It was then Ria offered her help. Aditya gave Ria 25 acres of farming land. The farming lands were covered in a layer of thick snow. Aditya had to use his magma manipulation to rise the heat of the 25 acres of land, which melted down all the snow and thus cleared the land. After that, Ria used her powers to do everything. Within a single day, a large quantity of rice was grown and even harvested. After calculating, Aditya was shocked to find that each acre yielded 10,000 pounds of rice, which is 4,535.924 kg of rice. Ria kept using her powers to shorten the time needed for the crops to grow by only 1 day. She kept repeating the process with various crops for 2 months. In the end, the granary was full of harvested crops. Ria helped them harvest so much food that Aditya was able to sell it to other kingdoms and empires. Aditya sold food to the Ethereal Empire and the Adrinia dynasty. For the Ethereal Empire, Aditya didn't want to take any money, but Rani insisted. Aditya thought of giving the money that was earned from selling food to Ria, since without the nature goddess this wouldn't have been possible, but Ria refused, saying that she had more than enough money. Since you have helped me in the Eastern Empire a lot, I will grant you a wish. You can ask for anything, but don't ask for something that is too much or something I can't do. Aditya made sure to add the last part, knowing that the elf princess can be very mischievous. This is one of the things that he learned about her. Hearing Aditya's words, the elf princess giggled. Hee hee. Let me think. I don't want to waste my chance after all. Aditya watched her think. Because of Ria, Julia was able to grow lots of herbs in a very short period of time. Now Julia had more than enough herbs to start working on making various kinds of pills and potions which she was never able to make before. Also, the herbs that were grown inside the dragon palace with the nature goddess's powers had the highest quality. After an entire minute of thinking, a small smile appeared on her face. Seeing Aditya suddenly started to feel worried. She closed the distance between them and took his right palm. She directly looked into his eyes and asked. I want you to take me on a date. I want you to give me this full day. Can you keep my request? Ria would have asked Aditya on a date a long time ago, but given how busy he was, she decided to wait. I guess I was worried for nothing. Aditya inwardly thought. Given her slight Yandra personality, he thought she was going to make him do something extreme, such as make him sleep with her, something which Aditya wasn't ready for, as their relationship was still growing and hadn't reached that point yet. Aditya put the black sword that was on his lap on the floor and then looked outside. Sure. These days, my workload has significantly decreased because of my new Prime Minister Spencer. I can take a day or two off if I want. That's great. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go now. Aditya put the black sword in his storage ring and then stood with his right hand being held by Ria. From the wide balcony, Aditya can see just how fast and how far the capital of the Eastern Empire has developed. In these 2.5 months, just like Aditya expected, many dragons from all over the continent came to Azure City and decided to settle there. Around 50% of them even joined the Eastern Empire so that they can get inside the Dragon Palace, which is heaven for the dragons. Aditya gladly took any dragon that wanted to join his faction. Every dragon that entered his faction received a drop of his bloodline, which turned them into Aditya's dragon warriors. This not only further purified their dragon bloodline but also turned them much stronger than before. Of course, some empires sneakily tried to gather information about the Dragon Palace. But no information about the Dragon Palace was revealed. Even if 1 or 2 factions managed to gather information about the Dragon Palace, Aditya wasn't worried. Even if a peak 5th Order cultivator wants to force his way inside the Dragon Palace, he would have to go through Aditya and all the powerful 5th Order guards first. Let's go. Aditya wanted to use this opportunity to see how much the capital has grown. Really, thank you very much to all those who... It was snowing. The capital of the Eastern Empire, the Azure City, was bustling as always. Each day countless people entered and exited the city. The influence of the Dragon Palace and its location as the Empire's capital has turned the Azure City from a small city with only thousands of inhabitants to one of the biggest cities of the Eastern Empire. Within the span of 8.5 months, Azure City now had a population of 4.5 million and the number was only rapidly growing. Adventurers and merchants both often visited the Eastern Empire. Within the span of 8.5 months, the average per capita income of the Eastern region people has tripled. This is true, especially for the people of the Eastern Empire. The Eastern Empire's neighbors that are the Thera Kingdom and the Stormal Dynasty also receive huge benefits for being the Eastern Empire's allies. The people of both the Thera Kingdom and the Stormal Dynasty can freely cross the Eastern Empire's borders. The outside area of Azure City had more than hundreds of tents set up. Near the tents, there were thousands of carriages waiting outside the city. All of those carriages were full of goods that were brought to the capital. Before, the outside area of the capital was covered in trees. But as the city expanded, the trees were cut down to create more empty space. The Eastern guards were inspecting the carriages and also checking if the merchants has the permit to trade. If the merchant had all the correct papers with stamps and the carriages had nothing suspicious or dangerous in them, then that merchant and his carriages would be allowed to go inside the city. However, with the ever-growing population, more and more merchants have become interested in starting their businesses in the capital. A merchant usually would have to wait a few hours before the guards could finish with all the inspection work. To escape from the snow and cold, the merchants were allowed to set up tents. On the other side, there were 5 lines of people. Each of the lines had more than thousands of people standing in them. All of those people want to enter Azure City. Most of the people who were outside had an oil paper umbrella with them. Among the 10,000 people, there was a certain couple that walked toward the eastern gate without bothering to wait in lines. No one was able to see the couple's faces as the man was holding a red lotus paper oil umbrella. The umbrella perfectly covered both of their faces. Even being surrounded by more than 10,000 people, there was something about them that attracted the people's attention. As both couples walked past the people who stood in lines, they couldn't help but feel as if they had been in the presence of a noble. The woman was wearing a beautiful pink-red kimono. She had tied her silver-white hair into a bun which exposed her seductive nape. She wore wooden sandals and wore white socks. Her beautiful face was hidden under a white fox mask. But even without being able to see her face, for some reason, the people felt that she would be extremely beautiful. The man walking beside her was also very extraordinary. Just like the female, he also wore a white fox mask. His dark blue hair reached down his waist. He wore a black kimono, white socks, and wooden sandals. He also had a black sword on his waist. The man held the paper oil umbrella. The white snow fell on the umbrella. Who are you? They? How would I know? But you will have to admit that both look so perfect together. A couple made in heaven. The aura of nobility around the couple made it hard for anyone to approach. Most commoners even began to assume that both couples are nobles and didn't dare to stand in their way. Also, some cultivators sensed that the woman is a beginner 5th order cultivator. After sensing this, they also stayed out of the way. No one wants to offend a beginner 5th order. Hee hee. I like this. We should go on more dates. Ria couldn't help but giggle slightly hearing what the people were whispering about them. With their heightened senses, it was not difficult for them to hear what the people were whispering among themselves. Ria was holding Aditya's left arm. From time to time she would purposely press the breast against his arm to tease him. Unfortunately, Aditya didn't fall for it, which made the elf princess pout in anger. Sure. But why I am carrying a sword on my waist? Today the dragon monarch got to see another side of Ria. It turned out the princess was very into role-playing. You're carrying that sword to protect me, silly. For today, you're playing the role of my protector. I am your master and you're my servant. Unfortunately, I have fallen in love with my servant. So today, both of us are secretly going on a date. This is also why we're wearing masks. Aditya couldn't help but roll his eyes. Protect who? A beginner 5th order cultivator needs no protection from a mid-3rd order cultivator. Sigh. Well, it's not like I am not having any fun. Even though Aditya has never been interested in role-playing stuff or in acting, today he was enjoying himself, which surprised him. The masks can also prevent people from finding out their true identities. Aditya won't have to worry about anyone recognizing him. Though, the guards would know who is he by sensing his aura. These masks were to prevent ordinary people from finding their identity and ruining their date. Milady, why are you making me carry a sword when I can just keep it in my storage ring and take it out if any enemy attacks us? Aditya decided to give it a try. Hearing Aditya playing along, Ria felt very happy. Under the white fox mask, the elf princess couldn't grin smiling at this moment. My dear servant, for today you're a samurai. Stop complaining. Ria replied just like how a dominating master would reply. Milady, where would you like to go? Aditya asked while playing along. He had lowered his tone and pretended to be timid. Since this city is your hometown, you get to decide where you will be taking me. Ria replied in a dominating tone. As Aditya and Ria approached the entrance, 2 guards stopped them. Halt, without waiting in lines, you can't wait inside the city. The 2 guards blocked Aditya and Ria's paths with their iron spears. It seems the guards have failed to recognize Aditya from his aura, which meant that these guards were new recruits. Both of them looked very young as well, so Aditya was sure of it. I am a guest of the Eastern Empire. Show them my seal. From Ria's authoritative tone, the guards felt that she was someone a noble or maybe a rich merchant who is visiting the capital. Especially the quality of her clothes and the tone that she used while speaking made them feel this way. Ria spoke to the guards as if she was talking to insignificant beings. It looks like she is taking her role very seriously. Aditya took out a fist-sized golden coin which had a symbol of a dragon flying over a city. This gold coin is given to the close allies and close friends of the Eastern Empire. This golden coin can give the owner many benefits. Without needing to stand in lines, one can enter the city just by showing this golden coin. Using this golden coin, one won't have to pay any gold for using the teleportation arrays. The gold coin came with many other benefits. Seeing the gold coin, both guards instantly bowed their heads to Ria. This left the others who stood in lines completely dumbfounded. Apologizes for making you wait. You two can go inside. What the guards did was nothing wrong. Both of them were doing their jobs faithfully and Aditya respected that. Humph. Ria pretended to be dissatisfied. She pulled Aditya inside the city. Just as Aditya and Ria walked beyond the city gate, the gold coin began to shine. A golden ray of light was shot out from the gold coin. The golden light hit the defensive dome that covered the entire city and then vanished. Aditya, what happened? I want an explanation. Ria knew that what happened had something to do with Aditya's rune skills. After becoming a 4-star rune master, the Dragon Kings first replaced the old defensive domes with powerful 4-star defensive domes that are capable of withstanding the attacks of even 4th order cultivators. Upgrading the defensive dome meant that the energy required to keep the barrier running would also increase. If it took 100 mana stones per hour to keep a 3-star defensive dome running, now it would take 200 mana stones per hour to keep a 4-star defensive dome running. The consumption was worth it, as the defense of the capital was the uttermost important to the Eastern Empire. However, there was one problem. Mana stones were like oil and petrol. A non-renewable source of energy. Meaning that the mana stones won't last forever. After a certain point, the mines would run out of the mana stones. When that happens, the Eastern Empire would have no choice but to become dependent on other empires for the supply of mana stones. Aditya wanted to change that by replacing mana stones with some mana source that will last forever. But for now, these were the things of the far future. Milady, this golden light is a signal to the guards. This is a signal that someone has used the gold coin. With the help of this golden light, the Eastern Empire can keep a record of who has used this gold coin and exactly where the gold coin was used. This gold coin and the defensive dome are connected. Impressive. Rhea was genuinely impressed by Aditya's talent in rune. Milady, let's head inside. There are a lot of things that will capture your heart. Humph. You better not lie to me. This humble servant would rather die than lie to his own master. At this point, both of them were completely into their roles. Milady, let's go to the Northern Plaza. What in the Northern Plaza? Rhea couldn't help but ask. The Northern Plaza is a place where everyday free food is given to the homeless and poor people. The homeless people would receive 2 meals each day. Aditya certainly didn't want to see the people of his own empire getting sold as slaves. Although it is impossible for him to ban slave trading, he can at least try helping out the homeless people by providing them with 2 meals each day. Especially during the months of winter, it is impossible for the homeless to survive without any food. With the huge amount that the Eastern Empire currently has in stock, all thanks to Rhea's help, it wouldn't hurt to feed the homeless ones. That's good. In the Celestial Terrain Empire, no elf would ever die of starvation. Not even the prisoners would die of hunger. Rhea has never seen or heard of anyone in her empire dying because of hunger. Milady, there is something that I wish to show you at the Northern Plaza. Alright. Milady, let's take a carriage to the Northern Plaza. Walking there would take more than 2 hours. Under Aditya's guidance, the roads have been reconstructed. The roads were widened so that both carriages and people can move and walk without crowding the roads. Trees were planted on both sides of the roads. Soldiers were assigned to keep regularly clean the snow off the road. After a short walk, in exchange for 5 silver coins, the carriage driver agreed to take them to the Northern Plaza. The carriage was very simple. Aditya and Rhea sat at the back. The carriage was pulled by a horse. Are you guys new here? Asked the carriage driver, who was a 26-year-old man with brown skin and blonde hair. I live in this city, but this is my lady's first time here. The carriage driver nodded his head. He couldn't understand why would both of them cover their faces. Whether they wore masks or not, it wasn't his problem. So he decided to not ask anything about it. How much do you earn per day? Aditya asked. In times like this, Aditya would be able to learn of the progress that the people have made under his rule. He would have a better idea of how the people of this city currently lived. He would be able to know if his citizens are satisfied. Before, this kind of carriage service didn't even exist in the capital. But now things were progressing so fast. Seeing the changes within the city, Aditya couldn't help but feel proud of himself. He also realized which areas of the city needed to be improved. I earn somewhere around 100 silver coins per day. The carriage driver replied. With the ever-growing increase in population, it wasn't hard to find customers for carriage drivers. Is it enough? It's more than enough. Even if I were to earn 25 silver coins per day, then also I would be satisfied. With cheap food prices, I won't have to spend too much money on food. My children can get basic education at a very cheap price. And as a citizen of this city, I am enjoying many kinds of benefits that His Majesty has provided us. Hearing this, a small smile appeared on his face. Unfortunately, no one saw that smile, as his face was hidden under a mask. What kind of life did you have 6 months ago? Rhea couldn't help but ask out. She knew the condition of the entire Eastern Empire was really bad. Especially the capital was on the brink of dying. I used to live in a small village which is located 13 kilometers to the northeast of the capital. Every month I used to come to the capital to sell the goods that my family had grown. But thanks to His Majesty, the condition of our whole family became better. My big brother is a soldier. Because of him, we easily got a place to settle down within the capital. I decided to become a carriage driver. It took them 15 to 20 minutes to reach the Northern Plaza. After getting out of the carriage, Aditya held Rhea's hand. He held the paper oil umbrella with his other hand. This place is beautiful. The Northern Plaza was built around a giant banyan tree that was almost 100 meters tall. The Northern Plaza was built with the giant banyan tree at its center. The 400 meters radius around the giant banyan tree was surrounded by a 2-meter thick ring of water. But right now the water ring around the banyan tree was frozen dew. The giant banyan tree was covered in white snow, making it look like a giant white monster from a far distance. The green grasses around the banyan tree were also covered in snow. This was the place where the homeless people were served food every single day. I don't understand. Usually, these kinds of big trees would be cut down to make more space. Rhea was no longer in her character. She didn't even realize it. Actually, Watson and I decided to keep his tree growing. We wanted to add a little bit of greenery to the city. When the snow stops falling, this tree can be seen from a very far distance. What did you want to show me? Ria asked. Something very interesting. Aditya took her hand and began walking behind the banyan tree. Behind the giant banyan tree, there was an area that was restricted to normal people. Only Aditya and people with permission can enter this place. What is this place? 400 meters beyond the giant banyan tree, an area of more than 2,500 meters was separated from the rest of the city by 3 meters tall thick wooden walls. The whole place was guarded. There were even big writings on the walls which states that the public is not allowed to enter. Let's go inside. Aditya removed the mask as there was no need to hide his identity there. Following Aditya, Ria also removed the mask that she wore to cover her face. As Aditya approached the gate, the guards recognized his face. They quickly opened the gate to allow their king to pass. While passing the guards, Aditya nodded his head at them to show his appreciation for their hard work. Seeing this, the guards' eyes lit up in excitement. As Ria stepped inside, she widened her eyes seeing hundreds of crystal domes. Various kinds of plants were planted in those crystal domes. Aditya, what is this? Don't tell me you used crystals to build those things. Crystals were very expensive. Even the lowest grade of crystal with the least transparency will very costly. And Ria was able to see through the crystal domes. This meant that these domes were built from crystals of the highest transparency, which must have cost him a huge amount of money. These things are not crystals. They are called glasses. Glass is similar to crystals, but they are more transparent and can easily be produced. Glass? Ria curiously walked near one of the greenhouse domes. Touching the glass, she widened her eyes. This glass indeed does feel very different from crystal. Ria inwardly thought. As if knowing what Ria was thinking, Aditya explained. You see, before winter came, I knew that the Eastern Empire would face a food problem. I wanted to grow food even in winter. So I came up with this idea. These glasses domes will keep the snow away and will also trap the heat of the sunlight, which would allow plants to grow. The glass can be made from sand. Looking around, Ria realized the whole place had hundreds of dome greenhouses. Many different kinds of crops were grown here. But unexpectedly you come and helped us with the food problem. Why you didn't tell me about this? Ria felt a little annoyed at the fact that Aditya kept such a secret from her. Most of the time you were working at the farming land, accelerating the growth of the crops. I didn't get a chance to show you this. When Ria would return to the Dragon Palace, she would be very tired from exhausting all of her mana. These 2.5 months, Ria didn't even come to Azure City, which was a few kilometers away from the Dragon Palace. She, Julia, and Alicia, all were busy with their own work. Actually, in the future, I am planning on selling glass. Glass would replace expensive crystals, making glass one of the most sought products in the market. All the profits generated would straight come into Aditya's pocket. Not only that, he can scale up his business using the wide range of business networks that Alicia had. In a few months, it would be even possible for Aditya to send glasses to various continents. When that happens, the Eastern Empire would become insanely rich. The glass would especially become noble. As rich people are always attracted to shiny objects. Crystals which were a replacement for glass in this world were only used by nobles, as the crystals were very expensive. But the cheap availability of glass would make it a product that can be afforded even by the commoners. For the next 2 hours, Aditya showed Ria everything. After 2 hours, the goddess of nature felt satisfied and had seen everything in this place. Aditya and Ria decided to leave and have lunch somewhere. For the rest of the day, Aditya kept showing Ria various famous parts of the capitals. Before dinner, both of them returned home. Ria was very satisfied with today's date and Aditya got to see how the capital was developing. Today was a very exciting day for both of them. But for some people today was full of bitterness. One of those people was Alicia. After learning that Aditya has taken Ria on a date, the goddess of wealth was angry. She also wanted to go out with him. In these 2.5 months, other than having breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, both of them very rarely met. Both were very busy with their work. Why I am being left behind? Alicia didn't look least happy about the whole situation. Calm down, will you? You can ask him to take you out in the future. In these 2.5 months, Julia has drastically transformed. Although her appearance didn't change, something else changed about her. Julia now looked more feminine. Before she lacked the womanly charm and had a trace of a childish aura around her. But now Julia had the aura of a mature, gentle woman. Her charm had increased to a frightening level after she started sleeping with Aditya every night. In many ways, the goddess of alchemy has matured a lot. Do you think it's that easy? The goddess was too embarrassed to ask Aditya to take her out. Alright. Now calm down. I will help you out. Julia gently patted Alicia's head with a kind and warm smile. These days, Alicia started to feel as if Julia had become her mother. Especially the change in her aura made her feel that. Now Julia very rarely lost her calmness. She was very gentle and warm to everyone in the Dragon Palace. Everyone in the palace loved her kindness. Alicia moved Julia's right hand away from her head. Stop acting like my mother. Not mother, I am your big sister. Before it was very easy to tease Julia. But now the whole situation has been reserved. Now Alicia is constantly teased by Julia. Julia didn't even do anything to tease her. It is just that being around Julia, Alicia cannot maintain her usual calmness. The western part of the dying Al continent is a region of islands. The number of islands that were in the western region exceeded 400,000, which was simply too many. Among the 400,000 islands, there were many big and small islands. Most of the islands are abandoned, while some are not suitable for people to live in them. The remaining islands were home to thousands of different ethnic people. Some of those island people even have their own language and deny any contact with the outside world. The western region had a very complex geography. The western region was home to the most dangerous marine magic animals. Some of those marine magic animals have the power to drown an entire kingdom under the sea. On the surface, over 400,000 islands of the western region were mainly controlled by 7 forces. Other than the 7 empires, there were multiple kingdoms and dynasties that had to ally themselves with one empire to survive in this region. By allying themselves, the empires would agree to grant protection to those small kingdoms in exchange for a percentage of their yearly income. An empire would send its troops to those small kingdoms which are under its protection. But when talking about the western region, people mostly talk about the 7 empires that have existed for many years now. The 7 empires have never allowed a foreign force to attack any kingdom or empire within the western region. In face of a foreign invader, the whole western region would put their differences behind them and would join hands to drive out the enemy. I thank each and one of you for coming to this meeting. 7 figures were sitting around a big round table. Each of the figures controlled the lives of millions. Each of them had the power to destroy the lives of millions. They were the people that stood at the very top of society. Their words became the law. And no one had the power to go against them. With just a snap of their fingers, they can make millions of people kneel on the ground. They were the 7 great emperors that controlled the entire western region. And today the 7 great emperors were having a meeting in a neutral region. The neutral region was located at the very center of the western region. The neutral region was a small kingdom that is made up of 6 small islands surrounding a big island. The ever-reigning islands were a kingdom of 7 islands. In the past and in the present, the meeting of the 7 great emperors has always taken place in this kingdom. The ever-reigning islands experience rainfall for 11 months every year. It was a place where it never stops raining. The meeting was taking place at the capital of the ever-reigning islands. The king of the ever-reigning islands arranged the meeting place for the 7 great emperors. As the ever-reigning islands were a place where the great emperors met, the ever-reigning islands never had to worry about anyone ever attacking them. The kingdom didn't have any enmity with any kingdom or empire. I can understand that both of you have issues with the Eastern Empire, but that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of us. Why did you call for this meeting? Even outside the western region, the great emperors had a big influence. Especially in the northeastern region of the continent where the strongest empires and factions of the continent reside. Over the hundreds of years, the great emperors have built lots of connections. Those old cunning emperors had more political influence than the 2 dragon empires in the southern region. The old emperor of the Storm Empire glanced at the rest of the great emperors. No one knew what the Storm Empire's emperor was thinking. It was the Storm Emperor and the Ageless Islands Emperor who together formed a plan of arranging this meeting. Recently I am sure you all know what happened in the southern region. Of course we do. I couldn't stop laughing seeing the 4 of your 5th Order commanders killing each other. Replied the Emperor of the Shadow Islands Emperor. Hearing the response of the Shadow Islands Emperor, the 4 great emperors were not least bit happy, but what the Shadow Islands Emperor is true. And the truth was like a slap to their faces. All of our minds are very fresh. How can we forget such a big event? This event shook the entire empire. Especially the great snake creature that came out of that crack and killed the remaining troops just using its pressure. Once again the 4 great emperors felt like their faces were heating up. What happened in the southern region is a big shame, a big scar to their great history. This was especially true for the Mist Ocean and the Cloud Earth empires. Not only both empires lost all of their troops and 5th Order commander in a battle, they later learned that the White Dragon Emperor used them to fight the Southern Fire Dragon Empire. So even if the Northern Frost Dragon Empire lost the fight, they didn't lose much of their troops. Good, since every one of us remembers what happened a few months ago, then let's talk about the reason why we called for this meeting. First let's talk about a big problem that is currently cornering all of us. After years of mining mana stones, now the entire western region is almost out of the mana stones. It's not a secret that if things go on like this, in a few years we will run out of mana stones, and when that happens, we will become entirely dependent on the outside world for our supply of mana stones. This itself puts our energy security at risk. We could have simply mined mana stones from the sea, but that is not possible given the sea is the territory of the underwater empires and kingdoms. Even if we attack a small underwater kingdom, every sea force would unite to attack us back. The outcome of this would be simply catastrophic for us and the sea forces. Which is why for hundreds of years, neither of our sides has clashed and simply remained neutral. While the sea beneath them was filled with resources, the 7 great emperors didn't dare to aim for those resources. Being island empires, the number of resources that the 7 empires had was very limited, which pretty much limited their growth. The 7 great emperors have tried various times to purchase mana stones from them, but each time every one of them has refused to sell any mana stones to the surface forces. In this world, there is a big gap that separates the surface and the ocean forces. Neither side is willing to do any business or have any relationships with the other. Buying mana stones from other continents is costly. The reason the Storm Empire agreed to help the Southern Fire Dragon Empire is that we were promised by the Black Dragon King himself that they would sell mana stones to us at a very cheap price. Unfortunately, things didn't go the way we planned. But there is still a chance for all of us 7 empires to reduce our dependency on foreign continents for the supply of mana stones. We can save tons of gold just by following my plan. The Shadow Islands Emperor frowned upon hearing the words of the Storm Emperor. Currently the political situation of the Northern Frost Dragon Empire is in utter chaos. The Southern Fire Dragon Empire has fallen and now is under the control of the Eastern Empire. If 7 of us combine our powers together, then do you guys believe that the Eastern and the Northern Frost Dragon Empire combined could stop us? Yes, it is a huge feat that the Eastern Empire managed to take over the Southern Fire Dragon Empire within 7 days. But can they truly fight all of our empires together? I refuse to believe that the Eastern Empire can do something like this. Think about it. The chaotic political situation in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire will perfectly give us the chance of defeating them. We can get all the mana stone mines in the southern region in our hands. We won't have to spend money. Instead, we can earn huge chunks of money by selling mana stones from those mines instead. By the time the Storm Emperor stopped, everyone fell into silence. What he said was very true. Given the current situation of the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, even a single empire would be able to defeat them. Leo Gallagher's POV ______. Sitting in a dark room, a handsome young man with light blue hair was sitting on a bed with his eyes closed. The 15-year-old boy was sitting in a lotus position. He was currently cultivating. Each time he breathed, along with oxygen, he also inhaled mana that is present in the air. The air that was filled with mana reached his lungs, which was then diffused into the bloodstream and went to the heart. The heart then separated the mana and stored it inside the heart. Another part of his heart circulated mana throughout his entire body using blood. The mana strengthened each cell of his body. The young man's name was Leo Gallagher. Leo was a huge secret that no one other than his little sister knew. He has a dark past. And a bright future. His dark past completely changed his personality and his entire life. After the things that he experienced, Leo Long would have lost himself in darkness if not for the last remaining source of light that prevented his heart from becoming cold. The only source of light in Leo's life was his own little sister. Leo Gallagher and his little sister, Clara's entire lives have changed after both of them met Aditya on that fateful night. Leo was deeply impressed by Aditya's strength. Because of that man, their lives became 1,000 times better. They won't have to sleep on the streets anymore. They won't have to beg for food anymore. They won't have to suffer anymore. Because of him, Leo and Clara were able to become strong. Leo was Aditya's Dragonian. Leo was very talented. In fact, he was in cultivation. He was even more talented than Julia and Alicia. Aditya would even dare say that Leo is the most talented cultivator throughout the entire Eastern Empire. Right now, Leo was trying to break into peak third order. For the last 2.5 months he has been cultivating in his rooms without going out. The only time that he ever stopped cultivating was when his sister called him to have food with her. To Leo, strength was everything. Due to the unfortunate event that changed his life, he was taught this valuable life lesson at a very early stage of his life. He has been cultivating day and night without stopping. Seeing Leo so focused on cultivation, Aditya didn't send Leo on any missions. Huff. 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 Leo was panting. Sweat rolled down from his forehead. His heart was beating wildly. He was tightly clenching his fists. His expression was changing every second. One second he would look very happy, then another second he would look shocked, and the next second he would look very sad, and he looked very angry. He was biting his so hard that blood started coming out. If things go on like this, then I can never cultivate in peace. I think it's time to take revenge. Leo opened his eyes. He was feeling very frustrated over the fact that he didn't manage to break through. It all started last week. Each time Leo closed his eyes to cultivate, he would see the things which was the source of his suffering and his pain. With each passing day, this kept becoming worse and worse. Leo Gallagher POV ___________. Scene change _______. On the other side of the Dragon Palace, Aditya was talking with Alicia regarding the distribution of glass on various continents. The goddess of wealth was more than happy to act as the distributor. Using glass, not only the goddess can increase her influence in other continents, but she can also expand her business and earn more money. I will help you with the distribution. I will make sure that your glass products are available in every city in West Nia, Dying Isle, and on other continents. But I want 20% of the total profit. Not even an entire second had passed, Aditya agreed. Alright. Seeing Aditya agreeing so easily and so quickly, Alicia wondered if he was mad at her. Aditya, are you mad at me? Oftentimes, the goddess has seen relationships crumbling because of money and profit. Alicia wondered if Aditya was disappointed in her for taking 20% of the profit. Despite their relationship, Alicia still paid taxes and everything to Aditya. Alicia also does the same with the White Lotus Guild. Each year, Alicia pays a huge sum of money to the Ethereal Empire as taxes. Why would I be mad at you? Aditya asked back with a smile. Because I am asking for 20% of the profit. Contrary to her expectations, Aditya shook his head with a smile. Princess, I really don't care about money. I have more than enough money to run this empire. Because of you, I can increase my profits. With you, I won't have to worry about anything. If I had approached some other merchant, then they would have asked for a higher profit percentage. Alicia also nodded her head. She would have asked for a higher profit percentage if it wasn't for Aditya. I am totally alright with you taking 20% of the profit. Besides, the cost of making glass is very cheap. Even with 80% profit, at the end of the day, I would still have a huge amount of money. Besides, Aditya can't overlook the fact of how much the Seekers of Impurity Guild has helped the Eastern Empire develop at its early stages. Currently, the Seekers of Impurity Guild is the biggest taxpayer in the Eastern Empire and the number will only keep increasing. He can't also forget the help she has given him using her connections. Even if Alicia had asked for 30% or even 40%, Aditya would have agreed. Hearing Aditya's answer, Alicia felt very relieved and felt the weight on her shoulders has been lifted. Alicia would take asked for a lower profit percentage, but given that she was going to distribute glass on 6 continents, the profit earned has been multiplied by many times. More than half of 20% would be used to pay the salaries of her employees who would work and will be solely responsible for expanding the glass market. By the way, are you sure that you can keep the method of producing glass a secret? Alicia was planning on making glass their only exclusive product. By doing that, she would be able to have a monopoly over the glass. Don't worry, the people responsible for making glass are all my Dragonians. Even if the whole world changes, the Dragonians can never betray the Dragon Monarch. Aditya replied with a confident smirk. By Dragon Monarch, you meant yourself? Alicia couldn't help but ask. As the only dragon in history to have divine Crimson Storm Dragon bloodline, I am the only Dragon Monarch in this world's history, Aditya replied with a proud look. He even slightly raised his chest. You know, when I hear the words Dragon Monarch, I imagine that person to be someone who is the strongest being on the planet. I imagine the Dragon Monarch to be very serious, cold, ruthless, and very calculating. You're just describing me. But are you the strongest being on this planet? I will achieve that in a few more years. Dream on. I understand that your cultivation speed is extremely fast. But reaching peak 7th order is hard as reaching the end of the universe. Alicia has never heard of anyone managing to reach the 7th order in a few years. Being able to do something like this would be the same as saying that the world is flat and the universe is tiny as an island. Neither of the sentences makes any sense to Alicia. Knock. Knock. Aditya and Alicia both sensed Leo's presence behind the door. You can come in. Just as Leo grabbed the door knob and began to open the door, Aditya and Alicia were surprised to sense the great amount of killing intent leaking out of his body. As the door slowly opened, Aditya was able to Leo's face. Today, for some unknown reason, his face, especially his eyes, looked extra. His eyes were the same as the eyes of a dead fish. Those blue eyes of his held no emotions in them. He was truly a monster who was ready to do anything. It would be hard to believe that a 15-year-old boy has those dead fish eyes. It only makes Alicia and Aditya wonder what did he even experience. Tap. Tap. The sound of his footsteps was heard. He stood 10 meters away from Aditya. Directly staring at the Dragon King, his Dragonian expressed his desire, or rather his biggest wish. My king, I want your help. I want blood. I want to forget my past, but to do that I must soak my arms in warm deep red blood. Those words were more than enough for both of them to understand what would happen next. The Stormal dynasty is located in the very north of the eastern region. Due to its past, the Stormal dynasty's territory is way bigger than it looks. Autumning Islands is a group of 4 islands located more than 110 kilometers from the Stormal dynasty. These 4 islands are located 20 kilometers away from the mainland. In the past, back when many kingdoms and dynasties existed in the eastern region, the Stormal dynasty had a big conflict with the Nepika kingdom of the past. The Nepika kingdom knew that they cannot fight the Stormal dynasty, so the past Nepika king hence surrendered the Autumning Islands to the Stormal dynasty to resolve the issue. At the same time, the Nepika king did not see any value in those 4 islands that were located more than 20 kilometers away from the Nepika kingdom's mainland. The king did not even bother to send his men to check who inhabited those islands. Also, the other kings of the past never really took any interest in those islands, as those 4 islands were always surrounded by a thick layer of mist and it was very dark to navigate around those 4 islands. No one even knew if anyone lived on those islands. Autumning Islands were completely cut off from the mainland. Not even the merchants dared to go near the Autumning Islands. The rare few ones who dared to venture into those islands and never returned back. However, all these changed when the Stormal dynasty acquired the Autumning Islands. The Empress of the Stormal dynasty personally visited the Autumning Islands. The Empress met the race that lived on those 4 islands. The race that lived in the Autumning Islands wasn't interested in any foreigners and didn't want to be under the rule of any forces. While the Empress wanted to make the Autumning Islands an important part of her dynasty. The Empress of that time understood that if things goes like this, a big fight could break out between both parties. She saw the great power that the people living in the Autumning Islands had. The Empress didn't want a war to break out. The Empress was a very intelligent woman. To avoid a possible conflict between both parties, the Empress offered something that the people living in the Autumning Islands found hard to refuse. And that offer was. Right now Aditya, Watson, and Leo were heading to the Autumning Islands in disguise. While traveling, Watson was telling Aditya the history of the Autumning Islands and the Stormal dynasty. Leo and his little sister once lived in the Autumning Islands. Due to his past, he and his sister were forced to run away. When Aditya found them, both Leo and his sister had come to that city a few months ago and were struggling to live. The Empress wasn't willing to give up the Autumning Islands as they saw the value of those 4 islands. Knowing that if a fight breaks out, the only way that she can win would be to kill every single inhabitant living in the Autumning Islands, which they didn't want to see happening, she decided to approach them with a peaceful solution. She met the leader of those inhabitants. She offered that the Autumning Islands would remain semi-independent and would be left under the inhabitants' control. The Autumning Islands would be considered a territory of the Stormal dynasty, but the inhabitants would remain independent and would be allowed to govern themselves. So what happened? Aditya asked while playing with a small gold dagger that he found in his treasury the other day. Leo was sitting opposite Aditya and remaining quiet. He didn't speak. His sword was resting on his lap. Watson was sitting next to Aditya and peeling an apple. The old butler finally looked happy. He no longer looked exhausted and tired. The dark circles under his eyes had also disappeared from proper rest. It all happened because the Eastern Empire has found its new prime minister. Watson has to admit that Spencer is very talented. He quickly managed to learn everything. With a single glance, he is able to remember things which made things very convenient. Around a half-month ago, Aditya officially named Spencer as the Prime Minister of the Eastern Empire. Spencer had become Aditya's Dragonian and was in charge of taking care of the Empire in Aditya's absence. Because Spencer took over, Watson was able to relax. He finally was able to put the pen down. These days he didn't have to go to the study room anymore. Watson now had returned to work as Aditya's personal butler and his advisor. Because of all of the hard work, Aditya increased Watson's salary to 1,000 royal gold coins per month. He also gave Watson a small piece of land near the capital along with 10,000 royal gold coins as a form of appreciation. Aditya told the old man that if he ever felt like retiring, he can retire anytime, neither Aditya nor Julia is going to stop him. But the old man didn't like the idea of retiring. He said that he wanted to keep working. He even had plans of becoming Aditya's first child's personal butler. When he said those words to Aditya and Julia, the goddess's face was red as a tomato. Watson had become a core part of the Eastern Empire and Aditya's life. Aditya would definitely feel lonely without seeing his butler. Watson was one of the first few people whom Aditya had considered as his family. Even if Watson retires and quits his job, Aditya was still planning on seeing him regularly. Well, for starters, the inhabitants were not least bit happy about the fact that the Autumning Islands were open to the outside world. From what I know, those people have been living in isolation for eternity. Maybe living in isolation is one of the factors that kept their race from going extinct. For the next few years, more and more inhabitants became dissatisfied and their unhappiness towards the Storm dynasty increased. It was around 15 or 16 years ago, I heard that a fight almost broke out between the inhabitants. Some of the people rebelled against their leader who was responsible for negotiating with the Storm dynasty empress. However, their leader was very strong. He managed to suppress the rebel and make peace again. From the corner of his eyes, Aditya noticed Leo tightly clenching his fists. Things started to become chaotic when some narrow-minded inhabitants who lived that opening their islands to the outside world was a huge mistake attacked the merchants who came to trade. 1 and 19 innocent people were slaughtered. The Storm dynasty didn't like this. Especially the empress was very enraged. The leader of those inhabitants knew that if things went on like this, the rising tension from both sides would eventually start another war. So to calm things, he first punished the inhabitants that killed 119 innocent merchants. To peacemake with both sides, he decided to marry a noble's daughter from the Storm dynasty. Watson glanced at Leo, who was slightly trembling. Seeing this 15-year-old child suffering, Watson couldn't help but sigh, feeling bad for Leo. The leader had 2 children. And just like this, 15 years passed. Just when everyone thought that things were beginning to calm down, on a certain stormy night, some of the ether dragons somehow killed the leader. The wife protected her children and sacrificed her life to prevent her children from getting killed. Sigh. Watson finished peeling the apple. He handed the apple to Aditya and then started peeling another one. Leo and his sister Clara somehow managed to escape. One of the human merchants helped Leo and Clara escape from the Autumning Islands. What happened to Leo and Clara was very unfortunate. This is what I was able to gather from our spies. We will don't know why after 15 years of peace some of the ether dragons murdered their leader and their leader's wife. Watson wanted Leo to answer that. He was sure that Leo knew something that outsiders didn't know. Another 10 minutes passed in silence. Leo was still remaining quiet. He then finally opened his mouth. Because my mother was a human, neither I nor my sister was born with the ether dragon race bloodline. Because of that, both of us were bullied from a young age. The whole ether dragon clan hated us. They hated the fact that we were so weak despite being the son and daughter of their leader. Other than our mother and father, not a single person from the clan ever showed us any love. Whenever our clanmates found us alone, we were beaten and bullied very badly. Aditya sat next to Leo and then patted his shoulder. This boy has been holding it inside for a long time. He needs to let it out. Really, thank you very much to all those who send support with value. Dragons are superior to every other race in this world. Dragons stand at the very top of the food chain. Every dragon is a powerhouse. Every dragon in this world is ridiculously strong. Every dragon is born with immense pride and arrogance. Dragons would rather die than lower their heads and become a slave. As a dragon monarch, Aditya's pride had no bounds. Aditya would never lower his head to any being. Even though he was a prideful creature, he didn't let his pride blind his eyes. He never let his pride affect his judgment and his actions. But this was not true for every dragon out there. The ether dragons were blinded by their pride. Despite being children of their leader, Leo, and his sister, neither of them was able to inherit their ether dragon bloodline. To the rest of the ether dragons, this was their biggest source of shame. The fact that their own leader protected his children who couldn't even inherit the ether dragon bloodline added more fuel to the fire. Adding the fact that it was because of their leader that they had to open the Autumning Islands to the outside world, which most of the ether dragons did not like. Some ether dragons first killed their own leader and his wife before they went to kill their clan's biggest failures. Hearing Leo's words, Aditya remained silent. His words had reminded him of some past memories that he wished to forget. Aditya also suffered like Leo, although no one physically abused him, he still had to suffer bullying. Being the son of the Dragon Emperor who ruled the biggest and the strongest dragon empire in the history of this world, the people had a lot of expectations of Aditya. When he failed to meet the expectations of the people and failed to awaken his dragon bloodline, he was called trash. Aditya clearly remembers the day when he was called in front of thousands of people by his own father. He clearly remembers the despair he felt when he was told that he would be banished from the main continent forever. I don't need an incompetent son like you. You're worthless. You're a shame to this great empire and to its great legacy. From this moment, you will be no longer a part of this empire. Your title as the crown prince has been revoked. We and this empire no longer need you. Just as those words were said, two guards grabbed Aditya's shoulders. The guards took away everything that Aditya owned. Even the pendant that his mother gave him was taken away. Later, under the emperor's orders, he was randomly thrown to the eastern region of the dying continent. Everything happened for a reason. I don't care about my past anymore. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. I have no ties with them. In fact, it's the opposite. The path on which I walk will lead me to become their enemy. If at that time Aditya had awakened his bloodline, then the current Aditya wouldn't have existed. Today whatever he has achieved was done through his own hard work. And Aditya was very proud of it. Even if he didn't have the system, Aditya still would have succeeded. Currently, his father had no competition. His father, who was the Dragon Emperor, ruled the lives of more than 100 million people. No one was able to challenge his rule. Leo's situation is the same as mine. He is also somehow who has been outcast by his own people. Aditya was determined to help Leo even more after learning his story. Your Majesty, soon the ship will reach the Autumning Islands. If one wanted to come to the Autumning Islands, that person would have to use a ship or boat to come here. But to exit the Autumning Islands, one can use the teleportation array. I still don't understand why they allow people to leave the island through the teleportation array but do not allow anyone to come using the teleportation array. If they were allowed to use the teleportation array, they wouldn't need to waste an entire day to reach the Autumning Islands. Ahmed, right now we're in disguise. My name is Khalid. And Leo's name is Isaac. Watson nodded his head in agreement. Right now, they were dressed as Arab merchants who were coming from the dry savannah continent. Isaac, can you tell us more about the Autumning Islands? And maybe also tell us a little bit about the ether dragons who live there. My father told me that the ether dragon come to this island to escape from the dragon slayers who were trying to exterminate the entire ether dragon race. This happened somewhere between 1,500 to 2,000 years ago. At that time, the size of the ether dragon race was only 19. Now the ether dragon race has over 3,000 dragons. If ether dragons didn't have a low birth rate, the number would have been much higher. According to my father, at that time, the dragon slayers were hunting every single dragon that they could find. One of the powerful ether dragons managed to kill an emperor of a certain empire. The empire in retaliation gave a huge amount of money to hire the Dragon Slayer Guild to exterminate every single ether dragon. Dragon Slayer Guild? Aditya looked at Watson for more information. After what the inner member of the League of Black Tomb had done to Aditya, he had grown a deep hate for the Dragon Slayers. If Aditya ever met one, he definitely would hunt the Dragon Slayers. Also, as the Dragon Monarch, he hated the fact that the members of his race were being hunted. This guild still exists. Though compared to its glorious past, now its power has decreased a lot. Currently, their headquarters is located somewhere in West Nia. Our ancestors created a special type of array which creates defense illusion fog around the 4 islands. Anyone who enters the fog will see scary things and will lose their sense of direction. Hence will get lost. Father also told me that, in the past, before the Empress contacted them, some of the ether dragons regularly patrolled the surroundings and made sure to kill any fishermen or merchants who tried to enter. For thousands of years, the ether dragon has been thinking that the Dragon Slayer Guild is still looking for them. Also, after living in isolation for more than 1,000 years, the ether dragons didn't want any outsiders in their home. Interesting. Tell me more. With a little bit of research, Aditya is sure that he can also create a similar type of illusion fog array. More than 1,000 of ether dragons were hunted down by the Dragon Slayer Guild. To this day, this fact hunts almost all the ether dragons. The Dragon Slayer is undoubtedly the ether dragon's biggest fear. One of the reasons why my father peacefully negotiated with the Empress was because he was also afraid that the Empress might send the Dragon Slayers to the Autumning Islands. But now I wouldn't even care if all the ether dragons were hunted down by the Dragon Slayers. In fact, I want that to happen. Khalid, we're approaching the coast. From the window, Aditya saw able to see the 4 Autumning Islands. The 4 islands were very big. Out of the 4 islands, the ether dragons only allow outsiders to step inside one of the islands. The other 3 islands are closed to outsiders. Only someone who is a trusted ally of the ether dragon clan can enter the other 3 islands. Under my father's leadership, a big city was created on Crystal Home Island. Merchants from various continents come to these islands and trade here. But the Crystal Home is very closely guarded by powerful 4th Order ether dragons. Cultivators above peak 3rd Order would need to get permission from the ether dragon clan before they could step on the Crystal Home. As the ship approached the Crystal Home, Aditya spread his senses all over the city. He was surprised to learn that such a small city had more than 50,000 people living in it. But half of the people who lived here were merchants or criminals who ran away from the other kingdoms and came to take shelter here. Here, ether dragons rules above all. Ether dragons are treated like gods. The ether dragons can get away by doing almost anything. The law of this place prevents any ether dragon from being harmed or punished by any one foreigner. Not even the Storm Isle dynasty's soldiers or commander has the authority to punish the ether dragon. Looking at the crystal home, Aditya couldn't help but think that he would need to have a meeting with the empress of the Storm Isle dynasty. Aditya has taken an interest in these 4 islands. But the meeting would have to wait as Leo's revenge story came first. Welcome to the city that is hidden behind the mist. Before you step onto this land, I want to make some ground rules clear. No foreigner is allowed to step outside the city without taking permission. No foreigner is allowed to enter the forbidden zones within the city. No foreigner is allowed to start a fight within the city. If any foreigner is caught stealing, attacking, robbing, murdering anyone, that foreigner will be heavily punished. Aditya and others looked at the man who was a beginner third-order cultivator. Seeing the silver collar on his neck, Aditya understood that this man was one of the thousands of slaves owned by the Ether Dragon clan. Everyone who came to the Crystal Home Island knew these rules from the beginning. The Lost Pearl City was one of the most heavily guarded cities that Aditya has ever stepped into. Not even the capital of the Eastern Empire is that heavily guarded. But despite the heavy security, Aditya can see corruption taking place right before his eyes. As soon as they stepped into the Crystal Home Island, they had to wait in a long line before they could enter the Lost Pearl City. The entire city was surrounded by 40 meters tall high walls. It was as if the Ether Dragons didn't want any foreigner to even see what goes on beyond these walls. These high walls show the Ether Dragons' desire to trap everyone here and keep them under their control. The 40 meters tall high walls were made from iron. Skeletons of various magic animals, humans, beastmen, marine magic animals were embedded on the walls. These Ether Dragons truly want to show the foreigners what they are capable of. By the skeletons on the walls, they are creating fear in the hearts of the foreigners. As the Dragon Monarch, it pains Aditya when he heard that one of his own kind is on the verge of extinction. But if that kind is the type of dragons who would live a life like this, then Aditya would rather kill them with his own hands. When my father was alive, the walls used to be around 15 to 20 meters tall. Justice was equally served and no Ether Dragon was allowed to abuse their powers. But now everything has changed. This city now feels more like a prison. Leo slowly said while looking around. It has been only 7 to 8 months since Leo and his sister fled from this place. Yet within such a short span of time, so much has changed. The entire Lost Pearl City looked completely unrecognizable to Leo. I think this is too much. It's not like any Ether Dragon lived on this island. So why do they have to restrict the foreigners within a single city? I guess their understanding of freedom is completely different from ours. The race of Ether Dragon could really use some freedom. Aditya chuckled remembering a famous joke relating to freedom. Young master, are you planning something? Watson couldn't help but ask. Who knows? Only time will tell. After waiting for another 25 minutes, finally Aditya, Watson, and Leo's turn to enter the city. The guards who stopped them were beastmen. They are slaves of the Ether Dragon clan. I want the 3 of your names and your purpose for visiting the Lost Pearl City. My name is Khalid. This is my little brother Isaac. And this is our butler Ahmed. We're here from the Eastern Empire to trade rice and fresh vegetables. Knowing that without paying a few coins or giving them something, the guards would make it very hard for them to enter the city, Aditya grabbed a bag of rice from his storage ring and handed it to the guards. Seeing this, the 2 guards looked very happy. Both nodded their heads. Both of them moved out of their way and allowed the trio to walk in. Just as the trio walked inside the city, they saw something that they will never forget. The cruelty of the Ether Dragon had reached a new level. Seeing this, the least drop of mercy that Aditya had for the Ether Dragons before also disappeared from his heart. Now he was sure that such a filthy race carrying the name of a dragon must not be allowed to exist. The fact that these Ether Dragons called themselves dragons felt like a slap to all the dragons and a slap to the Dragon Monarch's face. For the first time, the Dragon Monarch felt ashamed of a race calling themselves dragon. What was happening in the Lost Pearl City was very clear to everyone. The society of this place has been divided into 2 parts. The rich and the slaves. The rich became richer and the poor went on to become slaves. Right before Aditya, Watson, and Leo's eyes, they could see hundreds of slaves. These slaves used to be the original residents of this city. Back when the Lost Pearl City was created, these people came here to live first. But now, their life had become so worse that they had been turned into slaves. Aditya could see slaves of different ages. To the rich, it didn't matter who the slave was. They didn't care whether it was an elder or a child. A slave is a slave in their eyes. And a slave must work. Slaves regardless of their age and gender were being forced to carry very heavy goods on both of their shoulders and on their waists. Aditya can see some of the old people's legs trembling each time they try to take a step while carrying all these heavy loads. Each time a slave dropped a good on the ground, a lightning whip would hit their back. The pain would make the slaves scream in agony. Each of their screams carried their pain and their suffering. The lightning whip would leave behind a fresh long scar on their backs. The scars exposed their red flesh. The ground would become the witness of their pain and suffering. The fresh red blood fell, rolled down and dripped to the ground. Especially the old and the young ones who suffered the most. Every time they dropped something, the guards didn't hesitate even a second to hit them. Aditya noticed that some parents would try to help their child by carrying one extra bag of goods so that their child can keep walking without falling to the ground. Some of the slaves were completely naked. Their bodies were filled with the scars of whip marks. Their clothes were torn by the lightning whip. Dirt mixed with their blood and covered their body. All the slaves were very skinny and malnourished. Even Aditya, who had taken the lives of millions, was shaken seeing this. Leo and Watson were on the verge of exploding. Both of them held themselves waiting for Aditya's orders. It was clear that both of them were reaching the limit of their patience. At any given moment either Leo or Watson might go on a rampage and start killing all these bastards. Aditya wouldn't stop them even if Leo and Watson did something like this. Although slave trading was legal, Aditya would never allow something like this to happen. It was not just Aditya, no matter how cruel a king or an emperor was, they wouldn't allow slaves to be treated like this in their territory. Ah! An 11-year-old boy fell down from not being able to keep on carrying all the goods. Just as the guards were able to hit the 11-year-old boy with the lightning whip, a hand grabbed the lightning whip. At this moment, the whole area went silent. Everyone stopped and stared at the blue-haired young man in deep shock. I am not the type of person who loses my temper easily. But when someone does manage to anger me, I bring chaos and destruction. At the same time, the sky above Crystal Home Island began to darken. Before anyone could react, under their horrified gaze, a crimson lightning bolt fell from the sky and instantly turned the guard to ashes. The next moment Aditya let out a loud roar and spread the message to every ether dragon, all the ether dragons, I order you to bring your pathetic asses here. As if responding to the divine Crimson Storm Dragon's call, the atmosphere of the whole Autumning Islands began to change. The people around Aditya quickly stepped back in fear. Meanwhile, Watson and Leo didn't bother to hide their identities anymore. Both Dragonians have been waiting for this moment. Today they were going to drown their entire city in blood. The cries of the ether dragon will be heard within the walls of the Lost Pearl City. The Monarch Dragon was here to bring his judgment. The entire fate of the ether dragon was in his hands. Knock. Knock. Come in. Upon entering the room, the eyes of the elder fell on a middle-aged man with long light blue hair and blue eyes. The middle-aged man is the leader of the current ether dragon clan. He was around 6 feet tall. He had a muscular-built body. He was wearing a black dragon Hanfu robe. The leader was sitting in front of a table. He was reading a scroll. When the elder of the ether dragon entered the room, he put down the black scroll and looked at the supreme elder. The ether dragon had 1 leader and 7 supreme elders. Each elder had a different responsibility. One elder was responsible for protecting the ether dragons and keeping outsiders from entering the other 3 islands. One elder was responsible for giving cultivation lessons to the young ether dragons. One elder was responsible for managing their food and clothes. Like this, all the important roles have been divided and given to 7 elders while the leader oversaw them. Elder Patrick, I had given you a task. Did you manage to find the possible location of that 2 trash? Leader, unfortunately even after trying our very best we didn't find any trace of them. I believe someone must have helped them escape the Lost Pearl City. They should be somewhere in the vast Isteran Empire. And it is almost impossible for us to search the entire Isteran Empire. Given the current enormous size of the Isteran Empire, Supreme Elder Patrick didn't think it would be possible for them to search for Leo and Clara. Sigh. We cannot let those 2 live. Their existence is a shame to our entire ether dragon race. Elder Patrick, I hope you understand what I am saying. It was very easy for Lincoln to become the leader of the ether dragon. Under Leo's father, he has worked as a supreme elder for many years. It was during the time when Leo's father negotiated with the Empress, Lincoln secretly had planned to launch his plan of becoming the next leader. Over the years, he secretly managed to bring the other supreme leaders to his side. I also feel the same. Unfortunately, our influence outside the Autumning Islands is very small. If both of them had run off to the Storm Isle dynasty, then we could have done some negotiation with the Empress. Maybe we can get the Isteran Empire to help us out if we manage to make a deal with them. But I doubt the Isteran Emperor would be interested in making a deal with us. Lincoln also nodded his head in agreement. Did you get any news on how the royal family of the Storm Isle dynasty is doing? Do they have any plans for the Autumning Islands? Lincoln sounded very concerned. The previous Empress had a very good relationship with their previous leader. Lincoln knew if the Empress had not fallen ill, then she definitely would have addressed the issue of the sudden death of their leader. Lincoln wouldn't admit it to anyone, but he was afraid. He was afraid that one day someone might come to take everything for which he had planned for years. That's why he desperately searched for Leo and Clara. Even though the chances of Leo and Clara managing to awaken their ether dragon bloodline were next to 0, Lincoln didn't want to take any chances. Lincoln is aware that what they are doing has angered the Storm Isle dynasty. It was already a fortune that the new Empress did not send them any warnings. However, this peace could end at any given moment. But he didn't regret what he was doing one bit. As dragons, Lincoln believed that his race was superior to humans and other races. So he didn't mind treating the humans and other races who lived in the Autumning Islands as slaves. It would be best if we can separate ourselves from the Storm Isle dynasty and gain independence. When that happens, no more shackles will stop me. While Leo's father took peaceful approaches and could see both sides of the coin, Lincoln was someone who tended to do things in an aggressive style. Leader, these days more and more merchants are coming to the Lost Pearl City. I think it's about time we think of expanding the size of the city. You're right. I will think about it. For now, let's talk about. Lincoln was interrupted by a loud dragon roar. The roar had a message for every dragon who lived in Autumning Islands. To other races, this is just a normal roar, but to dragons, this was their special type of communication. All the ether dragons, bring your asses to the Lost Pearl City. The look on Lincoln's face instantly changed. Supreme Elder Patrick also frowned. Who dares to act so arrogantly in my Autumning Islands? Call all the elders. I want to see who this young dragon is. Around 20 minutes later, more than 2,000 ether dragons came from the surrounding islands to meet the dragon who had arrogantly asked them to come to the Lost Pearl City. As Lincoln and his ether dragon clan approached the city, he smelled blood in the air. The look on his face changed when he noticed crimson flames burning the walls. The state of the entire Lost Pearl City was in utter chaos. From the looks of it, the ether dragons felt as if someone had released a mad berserk dragon into the city. Thousands of dead bodies lay around the city. The walls were destroyed and some part of it was still being burned by crimson flame. Hundreds of houses were destroyed. Only the debris of those destroyed houses was left behind. Ignoring all that destruction, one thing caught every ether dragon's eyes. It was the large pool of blood behind the walls. In the middle of the large pool of blood, there was a small mountain. But upon a closer look, all the ether dragons widened their eyes in shock seeing that what they considered to be a small mountain was actually a mountain of dead bodies. At the top of the dead bodies, there was a figure whose entire body was covered in blood and was sitting while counting. The people who came to the Lost Pearl City were running here and there, trying to escape. Trying to get as far as they could get away from this monster. Trying to find shelter and never see the face of this monster again. Lincoln and other ether dragon clan members noticed two other men standing in the pool of blood. Lincoln for some reason felt that the young men who were also looking at him looked kind of familiar. Where I have seen this young man before? Lincoln couldn't remember it. Seeing that someone had dared to break their laws and cause chaos here, every ether dragon was angry. Whoever you're. This time you have offended the wrong people. The ether dragons became bolder after sensing that Aditya's cultivation was only mid-3 RD order. It shouldn't be much of a problem for them to deal with someone like him. Aditya's entire face and body were covered in blood. He looked at Lincoln. Those crimson eyes of his seemed to hold no emotion in them. Just looking at those eyes, one should realize that this young man wasn't here to mess around. Unfortunately, the ether dragon's pride blinded them, as it has always done. When the ether dragons were more than 50 meters above the ground, Lincoln signaled everyone to stop. Standing 50 meters above the ground, Lincoln and Aditya both looked at each other. The next second his eyes fell on the thousands of dead bodies. For a brief moment, he widened his eyes in horror seeing the state of these dead bodies. Every one of them was brutally killed by Aditya. Aditya did not use crimson lightning. He did not use crimson flame. He did not use his sword. He did not use any of his skills. Today he showered in the blood of his enemies. Today he had let his inner demon out. Today he had become the demon. The dragon monarch killed every single of them of the puppets of the ether dragon clan with his bare hands. His hands easily tore their hands, necks, legs, and other body parts. Aditya wanted each of them to experience the pain that these slaves felt when they were hit with a lightning whip. The painful screams of the guards were heard all over the Lost Pearl City. Humph. Today, we must show the world what happens if an outsider messes with us. Lincoln's confidence came from the fact that his ether dragon had 10 fourth-order cultivators. He thought he could defeat Aditya with 1 fourth order. But in a few moments, he would realize how naively he was thinking. Inferno Overdrive. Lincoln suddenly sensed Aditya's aura rapidly increasing. His eyes, which previously held no emotions, now were full of bone-chilling coldness. As if he was a volcano that can erupt at any given moment. Sensing that Aditya's aura rapidly getting stronger and stronger, the Supreme Elders and other fourth-order ether became alert. However, Aditya did not attack them. Under the eyes of more than 2,000 ether dragons, Aditya stood up. Using a small amount of his mana, he summoned the crimson flame orb in his palm. He then tossed the orb on the mountain of dead bodies. The crimson flame orb expanded in size and became a wave of crimson flame. Under the shocked gaze of the ether dragons, in a matter of seconds, all the dead bodies were consumed by the crimson flame. A few seconds later, the crimson flame disappeared along with the mountain of dead bodies. Even the ground was scorched black. Aditya then turned his attention to Lincoln and to the other ether dragons. As much as I want to kill all of you, someone here deserves to take your life more than I do. Seeing Aditya looking at the young man with blue hair and blue eyes, which is also their hair and eye color, Lincoln then realized that this young man is definitely someone related to the ether dragon clan. But for some reason, he couldn't sense the ether dragon bloodline in him, which meant that this young man had failed to awaken his ether dragon bloodline despite having ether dragon bloodline running through his veins. The only person that came into his mind was the son of a certain individual who managed to get away from his hand. No, how is this even possible? That trash wasn't even a cultivator when he escaped. In just less than 8 months it is impossible for him to reach peak third order. Not to mention the fact that he doesn't look like the Leo the First. No. Of course, Leo wouldn't look the same as he did 8 months ago. He had changed a lot both mentally and physically. Leo, how do you want to do this? Aditya support Leo if he wanted to fight all the ether dragons. He would support Leo if he wanted to fight 1v1 with Lincoln. No matter what his choice was, as his teacher, Aditya would support him. Meanwhile, hearing that Aditya was calling that young man Leo, Lincoln and other Supreme Elders widened their eyes in deep shock. Before they were not so sure. Not that they were 100% sure who this young man was. This young man was the son of their previous leader. To think he would reach peak third order in just 243 days, the whole thing was absolutely shocking. A feat that every ether dragon thought was impossible to accomplish was achieved by the very person whom they had considered to be trash is like a slap to all ether dragons' faces. Leo looked at Lincoln. Without any hesitation, he asked for a fight. I want to kill this bastard with my very own hands. Very well. A black sword appeared in Aditya's right hand. For some reason, the ether dragons felt a sense of terror seeing the black sword. Aditya can use his authority as the dragon monarch to forcefully make these ether dragons submit to him like dogs, but that wouldn't be fun at all. Not every dragon was worthy of becoming the dragon monarch's dragon warrior. Bastard, I don't know how did you manage to reach peak third order in such a short period of time, but today I will make sure to complete what I have been wanting to do for the past 15 years, and that is to end your life with my very own hands. And today I will take my sweet time in torturing the living hell out of you. I won't let you die so easily. I will make you beg me. I will make you crawl on the ground like a dog. I will cut every single piece of your body and feed it to the stray dogs. Boom. Leo couldn't hold back his aura anymore. 2 crimson pairs of wings appeared on his back. A layer of crimson scales covered his entire body. His pupil shape changed to red vertical slits. This. Lincoln and Patrick and other Supreme Elders looked at each other in deep shock. Just what the hell happened to Leo? The wings on his back and the scales covering his entire body and his eyes, all of these indicated one thing. Even if Lincoln wanted to deny it, he knew that the current Leo was no longer a human. He was a dragon. But not an ether dragon, he had become something more majestic. More powerful, more divine, more holy, and purer. Leader, you take care of this brat. Meanwhile, we will deal with the other. Lincoln nodded. Even if Leo had managed to become a dragon, his cultivation was higher than Leo's. While Lincoln was a beginner 4th order, Leo was only a peak 3rd order. In Lincoln's opinion, it was impossible for Leo to defeat him. So with full confidence, he flew forward. Leo also didn't waste any time. He took out a golden lance which was a peak 3-star lance and was enchanted by Aditya from his storage and then flew off to the sky. The ether dragons thought that the middle-aged looking dragon would also prepare to fight them. But he did something which was completely opposite of what they had thought. Instead of taking out his weapon, he took out a chair from his storage ring. After sitting down, he took out some nuts and began to eat them while staring at the ether dragons. Seeing this, Aditya smiled. It seems his butler wasn't interested in fighting. Even if Watson had decided to fight, Aditya probably would have finished everyone within a few seconds. I want to see how you lizards will keep flying once I cut off your wings. Nothing is more disrespectful to dragons when they are called lizards. Aditya's words had successfully pissed all the ether dragons. Swoosh. Aditya had disappeared, which had left all the 9 other 4th order ether dragons panicked. Meanwhile, Leo and Lincoln started fighting. Leo was fighting with golden lance. Lincoln fought with a silver sword. Compared to the quality of Leo's weapon, the quality of Lincoln's weapon was bad. The silver sword was one of those cheap 2nd-star swords found in the market. Lincoln put his palms together, then he took a deep breath and spat out a high volume of water at Leo. In counter, the young Dragonian summoned an orb of blue flame. The blue flame orb's size quickly expanded to meet the water blast head-on. Boom. Where did he go? I don't know. Everyone. Don't let your guard down. All the Supreme Elders were in consternation. They didn't know where Aditya had gone. I am here. Suddenly the Dragon Monarch appeared before Patrick. Before he or any one of the ether dragons could react, he once again disappeared. All the ether dragons were on their guard as they were expecting some form of attack. But after seeing that nothing is happening even after 10 seconds, everyone looked at each other in confusion. When the 11th second came, it started from one and then spread to all the ether dragons who were flying in the sky. In the 11th second, one of the ether dragons suddenly fell down to the ground. In that very second, 100 more ether dragons found that their wings has been cut off. Without their wings, the ether dragons fell to the ground. A few seconds later, every single ether dragon was hugging the earth as fresh red blood started coming out of their back. Not even the 4th order ether dragons were spared. In the sky, Lincoln, who has been exchanging moves with Leo, was horrified to see what Aditya had done to his race people. No. Lincoln was about to rush at Aditya, but Leo used this chance and managed to sneak behind Lincoln. Before Lincoln could react, Leo's golden lance managed to pierce Lincoln's chest. Cough. Lincoln's pupils contracted to the size of a needle. He coughed out a large amount of blood. He could feel his body gradually losing its strength. He knew in a few seconds he would die and close his eyes forever. As I said before, I won't let you die this easily. Lincoln's entire body trembled on hearing Leo's cold, emotionless tone. The next second, Leo took out a 4-star healing potion pill made by Julia and forcefully feed it to Lincoln, and then took out the golden lance from his chest. Before Lincoln would get away, he found a slave collar around his neck. Everything happened too fast for Lincoln. The hole in his chest began to heal instantly. Everything is not over yet. Saying that, Leo grabbed Lincoln and flew off to the other side of Crystal Home Island. Meanwhile, Aditya had finished dragging all the fallen ether dragons in one place. Why are you doing this to us? We never have offended you. One of the elders asked while trying to stop the bleeding on his back. All the ether dragons felt as if their back has been roasted over a fire. They could feel their flesh burning, which only intensified the pain they felt. Most of the young ether dragons had even lost consciousness from this pain. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Aditya. I am the Dragon Monarch. I am the Emperor of the Eastern Empire. Patrick and the others widened their eyes in shock. To think that a dragon race would fall so low. I am extremely disappointed with the ether dragon race. As the Dragon Monarch, it is my responsibility to make sure that dragons like you don't dirty the reputation of dragons. You guys have long lost the pride and the courage that a dragon should possess. Arrogance has blinded you all. For the sins that you all have committed, your punishment is death." Saying that, Aditya didn't wait for anyone from the Ether Dragon to say anything. With the wave of his hand, a huge wave of crimson flame surrounded them from all sides. Seeing the 20 meters big wave of crimson flame approaching them, all the Ether Dragons screamed in horror. Some pleaded with Aditya, some begged him, and some even swore to become his slave, but Aditya did not stop. Aditya didn't feel a shred of regret for what he did today. Even though he killed his own dragon race members, he didn't feel any pain or regret. He rather felt happy and calm. The Autumning Islands will be in control of the Eastern Empire for now. Watson sent out a message to the Empress. "I think both of us will need to have a meeting on this matter and discuss the future of the Autumning Islands." What happened at the Autumning Islands quickly reached the ears of the Storm Isle Dynasty's Empress. Within a few hours, the Storm Isle Dynasty's Empress personally wrote a letter to Aditya and sent her Prime Minister to personally deliver it to Aditya. At the same time, Aditya opened the teleportation array. 1,000 Eastern soldiers were bought from the capital. Under Aditya's orders, all the slaves were freed. Their slave collars were removed. At the same time, he personally told everyone who come to the Lost Pearl City to trade that no one was going to harm them unless they did something illegal or committed any crime. An hour later, things soon calmed down. The 1,000 guards began to clean up the city. Let's see what the Empress wants to say about this. Sitting on top of the wall, Aditya opened the blue envelope and he then took the neatly folded white piece of paper out of it. "Your Majesty. A few minutes ago I received the news of what you have done to the Ether Dragons. I really have to thank you for this. I would have dealt with the Ether Dragons, but my mother, the previous Empress, wanted the Ether Dragon clan to become loyal to the Storm Isle Dynasty, which would have increased our military powers. Also, from the beginning, my mother has taken a peaceful stance with the Ether Dragons and wanted things to remain peaceful." Peaceful. Even though my mother is no longer the Empress, I couldn't ignore her words. In the end, I decided to ignore this entire matter till I found a solution. Fortunately, you have done what I would have done in a few more months or maybe in a few years. Since you have done it, even if my mother is dissatisfied, she won't question you. I would really like to have a meeting with your Majesty to discuss the future of the Autumning Islands. Normally I would have given up the Autumning Islands, but the Autumning Islands are very important to the Storm Isle Dynasty. I hope your Majesty can understand this and won't make things difficult for me. After reading the letter, Aditya burned it using a tiny bit of his crimson flame. So she kind of used me. It's not like I care. If this were to happen in the Storm Isle Dynasty, then I wouldn't have thought twice before waging war against them. From what Aditya knew, the previous Empress still had big political influence over the Storm Isle Dynasty. Also, if the Empress had sent her forces to kill every single Ether Dragon, the military of the Storm Isle Dynasty would have taken a big hit. Aditya closed his eyes, thinking about what he should do with the Autumning Islands. Autumning Islands were of no interest to Aditya. If the Eastern Empire was still a small kingdom, then Aditya definitely would have liked to take the Autumning Islands, which could be used as a strategic geographic location. But now, even if the Storm Isle Dynasty has the Autumning Islands and builds their military bases here, Aditya sees no threat from the Storm Isle Dynasty. Though things might become troublesome if one day the Storm Isle Dynasty decides to ally with an enemy of the Eastern Empire and allows their ally to use the military base in Autumning Islands. Aditya has to make a contract with the Empress. A contract that will prevent the Empress from ever backstabbing the Eastern Empire in the future. Is he still torturing that man? Aditya could sense that Lincoln was still alive. But every 5 or 10 minutes later, his aura would weaken and then recover. Aditya did not interrupt Leo. That boy needed to let it out. Suppressing such emotions in his heart is not for good for his future. By doing that, he is only killing himself from the inside out. What should I do about the other 1,000 Ether Dragons who are mostly children and elderly ones? Aditya knew that for what he and Leo has done, the remaining Ether Dragons will hold grudges. Meaning in the future, the young ones will likely try to get revenge. So the cycle of hate will continue. Dragons don't easily let go of their vengeance. So trying to talk to the young ones is pointless. Although he didn't mind killing the elderly ones, the problem came with the young ones. Killing them would mean the end of the Ether Dragon clan. Even if Aditya didn't like what the Ether Dragon did, the extinction of a dragon race would be quite sad. Sigh. I will leave this to Leo. In the end, if Leo asked Aditya to spare the rest of the Ether Dragon clan, Aditya would listen to him and wouldn't hurt others. But the probability of Leo saying that is close to 0. Now, I should clean my body. Aditya's whole body was still covered in blood. Standing up, he flew towards the sea. After flying 100 meters away from the shore, he dived into the sea. After diving into the sea, he threw away his clothes which were soaked in blood. Then he took out a set of other clothes and wore them while underwater. He didn't care about being naked, as no one be able to see his naked body while underwater. Just as Aditya finished wearing his clothes, he sensed a certain familiar aura approaching in his direction. Aditya waited for that person to approach him. A minute later, Laura was standing in front of Aditya with a smile on her face. Looking closely, Aditya noticed that Laura's cheeks seems to be slightly flushing red. She also avoided looking directly into his eyes. Is something wrong? Aditya asked in confusion. Laura shook her head. She then looked at Aditya. Her cheeks looked normal again. Your Majesty, I was very surprised to sense you here. What are you doing here? Laura asked. When Aditya fought the ether dragons, some of the deep-sea palace guards sensed this and noticed the higher-ups. Laura heard about this and personally came to inspect what was going on. Earlier, Laura had managed to see Aditya naked with the artifact that allows her to see long distances. Aditya didn't realize that he was seen naked by Laura. She would never admit this. She would rather take this secret to her grave. My student has a history with the ether dragon race who lives on these islands. I came with him to settle the matter. Laura could smell blood in the water around Aditya. You settled the matter with blood? I wasn't planning on interfering, but they did something which also pissed me off. Laura knew that Aditya was not the type of person to easily lose his calm. If the ether dragons were able to make him lose his calm, then they must have done something very bad or disrespectful. What are you doing here? I thought you were cultivating. Last time Aditya met Laura at the High Harbor Tide City. Laura and her maid came there to find Aditya. That day Aditya and Julia were on a date. After clearing the misunderstanding between them, Laura and Aditya formed an alliance. Aditya had given her a pill that would increase her cultivation speed and would help her to break through beginner 5th order. In a few weeks or 2, I should be able to break through. I stopped cultivating to gain some experience fighting wild marine magic animals. Aditya nodded his head. I am going back to the Autumning Islands. Do you want to come with me? Alright. Aditya didn't think Laura would actually agree to go with him. He was only asking her out of politeness. Alright, let's go. A few minutes later, Aditya was accompanied by a beautiful lady. Aditya managed to dry his wet clothes by rising the temperature of his body. While Laura just used a simple technique to instantly dry her clothes. When both of them walked inside the city, all the people were looking in their direction. By now, every people in the Lost Pearl City knew Aditya. Many people wondered where this beautiful woman had come from. Even the peak 3rd order cultivators couldn't sense Laura's cultivation, which made them sure that the woman walking beside Aditya wasn't simple. I can't sense any ether dragons on this island except for one. Did you kill all of them? Laura asked while looking around. Laura never come to the Lost Pearl City even though the city was very close to the sea. Yes. Aditya spoke as if what he had done wasn't a big deal at all. This only left Laura more speechless. She knew the population of the ether dragons. The deep-sea palace never bothered the dragons who have been living here for more than 1,000 years. She didn't think Aditya would wipe out 2/3 of their population and act as if it is a very small matter. What are you going to do with these islands? Are you going to return it to the Storm Isle dynasty? Yes. By the way, recently I have been getting some news that someone has built a holy ground for the dragons. Do you know anything about it? Laura was very interested in the Dragon Palace. If possible, she would like to see the Dragon Palace with her very own eyes. But this simply wasn't possible. I have created the Dragon Palace. The Dragon Palace is the most important and most guarded place of the Eastern Empire. But if Miss Laura wants, I can bring you with me and give you a tour. Laura shook her head with a smile. I am afraid I can't accompany your majesty. Maybe some other day. How is everything at the Deep Sea Palace? Aditya knew by now the Deep Sea Palace must be preparing to host the competition which would determine who will become their next ruler. All the participants were training very hard. Nothing much. These past few months I have been trying to increase my political power. Most of the time I was cultivating in my house. But if anything major or very serious had happened, my people would have let me know about it. That's good to know. By the way, does the Deep Sea Palace has mana stone mines? Aditya couldn't help curious if the Deep Sea Palace had mana stone mines. Does your majesty has an interest in our empire's mana stone mines? Laura has heard of the things that the Eastern Empire has been doing. She didn't Aditya to expand his empire within the southern region. I am just curious. As of now, all of our mana stone supplies are fulfilled by 9 mana stone mines. But according to a recent study, the northern part of the Deep Sea Palace should have 5 or 7 more mana stone mines. While Aditya and Laura were talking about small things, Watson from the distance noticed both of them. Seeing His Majesty with another woman who is equally if not more beautiful than Julia and others, made Watson wonder if His Majesty's dragon bloodline had some secret power to attract beautiful women toward him. Of course, these were just Watson's personal thoughts. He would never share his thought with anyone. But if His Majesty were to marry her as well, the possibility of His Majesty having an heir in the future would further increase. Watson secretly thought while approaching Aditya and Laura. After learning how difficult it was for a divine Crimson Storm Dragon to have an heir, Watson has been slightly worried about the future. It has been his dream to become the personal butler of His Majesty's heir. He felt the chances of Aditya having an heir would drastically increase if Aditya has multiple wives. Watson, come here. Let me introduce you to Laura. Laura, this is Watson. Watson is my personal butler and also head of all the servants in the Dragon Palace. Watson widened his eyes hearing the name of this woman. He didn't Laura to be this beautiful. Watson, you should already who she is. Watson nodded his head. Last time, Aditya informed Watson about Laura when he returned to the castle. It's nice to meet you, Watson. Likewise, Lady Laura. Watson greeted her with a polite bow. He placed his right palm on his chest while slightly lowering his chest. Your Majesty, the whole Lost Pearl City is under control. Everything has been cleaned. And all the Ether Dragon properties have been seized. Good. Write a letter informing the Empress to send her troops to take over this city. Once the Storm Isle dynasty's troops come and take over, the Eastern Empire will leave the Lost Pearl City. Since Aditya was going to return this city to the Empress in the end, he didn't see any reason to place his troops here to maintain order. This should be the job of the Empress. The only reason Aditya bought his troops here is that they were responsible for the chaos that happened in the city. Now that the troops have cleaned everything and had managed to calm down everyone and also maintain order, their job was finished. Once the Stormal Dynasty's soldiers come here, the Eastern troops will return back to the capital city. As you wish. Around 20 minutes later, an army of 3,000 troops led by one of the strongest commanders of the Stormal Dynasty who was a beginner Fourth Order cultivator, came to the Lost Pearl City. The commander personally expressed gratitude on behalf of the Empress and the citizens of the Stormal Dynasty. Aditya knew the only reason the commander was thanking him is that they understood that Aditya had no intention of taking over the Autumning Islands. He proved this by returning control of the Lost Pearl City and Crystal Home Island. Alright, everyone, it's time to return. Saying that, Aditya looked in a certain direction. He could still sense the aura of the Ether Dragon leader. It seems the leader was still being tortured by Leo. Watson, you return with everyone. I will check on Leo and bring him with me. Watson nodded. A few seconds later, he and 1,000 troops left the Lost Pearl City. Your Majesty, I will also take my leave. I think I have seen enough. Until next time. Aditya nodded. He didn't stop Laura from leaving. Their relationship didn't go beyond an alliance with benefits. Both of them needed each other for their benefit. But that was a few months ago. Now my empire has grown significantly stronger. I am confident that I can deal with the Deep Sea Palace Empire and defeat them. But it wouldn't hurt to have a strong and wise ally like Laura by my side. Laura was a mature and wise person. This kind of person was very rare to find. Having her as an ally would only bring him benefits. Besides, the Eastern Empire has been conquering and expanding very rapidly. It would be nice to have a few powerful allies if in case something happened that is out of Aditya's prediction. Scene change _______. A normal man wearing a black outfit walked inside the Seekers of Impurity Guild. Walking inside the guild, the man met the female receptionist. How, sir, how can I help you? The female receptionist asked with a professional smile on her face. I want to meet the guild master. Saying that, the man showed a golden coin that had the symbol of a dragon on it. Seeing this, the female receptionist's attitude towards the man became more respectful. Please come with me. Before leaving with the female receptionist, the man turned around to see if anyone was observing him. All he saw were adventurers talking among themselves. Everyone inside the guild building was busy with their own work. No one paid any attention to him. In the left corner, some adventurers were drinking milk wine. Some adventurer parties were checking out the missions. While the other adventurers were mostly talking among themselves or talking with the other receptionists. Any high-ranking adventurer can meet the guild master. It wasn't such a big deal to meet the guild master. This is why no one thought of much when the female receptionist personally led one of the adventurers to meet the guild master. Beyond the wooden stairs, the guild master worked in the first room. There were several other rooms which are used by other guild employees. But compared to other rooms, the room where the guild master worked was 3 times bigger and more luxurious. While walking towards the guild master's room, the female receptionist greeted a few others who were her colleagues and friends. Knock. Knock. What is it? A female voice was heard coming from the guild master room. Guild master, someone wants to meet you from the Eastern Empire. Let him in. Click. The female receptionist watched the man enter the room. When the door was closed, she didn't wait anymore. She went back to the first floor to continue working. Meanwhile, the man took out a letter from his storage. Without saying any words, he approached the guild master who was looking at his face. It seems the guild master was very interested in him. But the man didn't care. His expression remained neutral. There were no emotions on his face. He silently put the letter on the table in front of the guild master and then turned around to leave. The guild master took the letter and then watched the man who walked out of the room. This whole time, neither of them exchanged any words. This was not the first time the man had given letters to the guild master. And this was not the first time the guild master had seen this man. After the man walked out, the guild master looked at the letter and thought out loud. It looks like another letter will be delivered to the Eastern Empire. Around a few months ago, the guild leader summoned all of them for a meeting. In that meeting, Alicia asked the guild masters to deliver letters that would be given to them by the secret spies of the Eastern Empire. Within a few minutes, the letter reached the Eastern Empire's capital. The letter was sent to the Azure City using the teleportation array. After receiving the letter, the guild master who was in charge of the Seekers of Impurity Branch Guild ordered one of the most trusted members of the guild to deliver the letter to one of the Dragonians. From the Dragonians, the letter reached the hands of the leader of the Shadow Guardians. The captain of the 3rd Division, the leader of all the assassins and spies of the Eastern Empire, was in the hands of Nathan Owen. Opening the letter, Nathan began to read the letter, which was written in their special coded language. The more Nathan read, the more his expression changed. In the end, the coldness in the Shadow Guardian's eyes had reached a level new. Holding a vast amount of rage and anger in his heart, Nathan silently went to the Dragon Palace. Really, thank you very much to all those who send support with valuable golden. What do you want to do with the remaining Ether Dragons? Aditya asked the man sitting opposite him. Currently, both of them had returned to the Dragon Palace. Aditya and Leo both were having a meeting. He felt he needed to have a talk with Leo. Leo did not reply. He has been like this ever since he returned after killing Lincoln. He didn't speak to anyone. The current Leo looked lost. Within just 8 months he had fulfilled his biggest purpose in life, which was to take revenge for his parents' death. Now that he had completed his mission, he was lost. He didn't know what he would do in the future. Aditya waited for Leo to answer. In some ways, Aditya and Leo's situation was very similar. Both were hated by their own families. No matter what he decided, Aditya is going to support him as he is an important part of the Eastern Empire. Leo had the potential to become even stronger than the 7 generals and become the second strongest force of the Eastern Empire after Aditya. After 10 minutes of silence, Leo finally opened his mouth. He finally looked into Aditya's eyes. I am supposed to hate the ether dragons more than anything, yet I can't bring myself to tell you to kill all of them. I still hate the ether dragons, but I feel I have done more than enough. My father would be very sad if he learned that his ether dragon clan went extinct as a result of his son's actions. So my answer is, don't kill them. Let them live. Seeing Aditya not replying, Leo became a little bit worried. He clearly understands what the ether dragons were doing had angered the dragon monarch. As the dragon monarch's dragonian, Leo doesn't even deserve to voice out his opinion, yet Aditya allows him to express his desire. Leo really hoped that Aditya wouldn't kill all of the ether dragons, as this would undoubtedly go against his father's wishes. Aditya maintains eye contact with Leo for more than 10 seconds. Looking at those crimson gems, Leo felt as if he was an ant in front of a dragon. There is simply no comparison between them. The only person who can make him scared is the dragon monarch. Aditya broke the serious atmosphere with a smile on his face. This left Leo confused. I am happy with your decision. Huh? Leo now looked super confused. You just had to tell me to wipe out every single ether dragon, yet you didn't. You didn't let revenge completely consume your head and affect your judgment. Instead, you chose to discard your revenge for the sake of your father's wish. I respect the decision that you have made. You're so young, yet your action is so mature. I am impressed. Leo looked at the bigger picture, which was the fact that his father was the leader of the ether dragons and have done everything in his power to secure that the ether dragons are never in danger. My king, I am afraid you're giving me too much credit. I have taken my revenge by killing Lincoln. The other ether dragons have nothing to do with my parents' death. They are innocent. I still hate them for bullying me and my sister when we were young. But I don't hate them to the point where I wouldn't do something that would put all of my father's hard work down the drain. Aditya just smiled in response. Your sister should be playing with Sky. You should see her and spend more time with her. While trying to gain power, these days, you have been seriously neglecting your sister. Right now, she needs you more than anything. Leo understood Aditya's words. He stood up, preparing to leave and see his sister right away. One more thing, don't forget to clean your body before you see her. I don't think there is any need of telling her what has happened today. She is too young for this kind of thing. Let her enjoy her childhood. Aditya then ignored Leo and took out his black sword. He started drawing runes on it with full focus. Leo stared at Aditya for a few seconds before bending his body to complete 90 degrees. Your Majesty, I can never repay you for the things that you have done for me and my sister. We will be forever in your debt. Aditya stopped what he was doing. There is no need for both of you to thank me. The Dragon Palace will forever be your home. Your little sister is also like my own sister. In some sense, she is the princess of the Eastern Empire. Although Aditya didn't say it indirectly, he was telling that Leo is the unofficial prince of the Eastern Empire. Leo understood what Aditya was indirectly hinting at him. Aditya basically gave them a new identity and a new home, and most importantly, a new fresh beginning. Realizing this, tears gathered in his eyes. The man who never shed a tear in these 8 months finally broke down. Silently, tears rolled down his eyes. But unlike other times, this time there was a genuine smile on his face. There were emotions on his face. The emotions that he locked in his heart started flowing out. The Eastern Empire's prince does not need to shed tears. The people will think that the little brother of the dragon monarch is weak. The good days are yet to come. The young ether dragon story of revenge is over. Now a new story will begin, and the Eastern prince will be a part of it. Those words were more than enough. Leo almost wanted to hug Aditya. But he restrained himself. For him, getting the recognition of being the dragon monarch's little brother is more than enough. I will try my best to live up to your expectations. After bowing his head once more, Leo finally left. Just as Leo closed the door, Aditya slightly smiled before going back to his words. Leo's journey was far from being over. Before he lived a life of an avenger, now he will need to live a life as the Eastern prince. A few seconds after Leo left, the smile on Aditya's face disappeared as he turned his head to his right. Nathan, you can come out now. Suddenly from the shadows, a figure emerged and kneeled behind Aditya. What news do you have for me, Nathan? Nathan would only come to meet Aditya if he had some important news that required his attention. Otherwise, most of the time, he would report the small things to Spencer or Watson. Sire, the news is quite serious. It seems there will be another bloody war going to take place in the southern region. On hearing this, Aditya shifted his full attention to Nathan. Speak, I am listening. 7 great emperors have joined hands and have formed an alliance to take down the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Our spies have noticed a few of the 7 empires moving their military. Last week, the Ocean Mist Empire bought 100 ice cannons from a foreign empire. Other empires are also preparing in their own way. How much time before the war breaks out? Probably 3 weeks or maybe even less. The reason this whole situation was serious news to the Eastern Empire and to the Dragon Monarch is because of several factors. First of all, the 7 great oceanic empires were very stronger marine forces. As the southern region is completely surrounded by the sea, after taking down the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, they could simply surround the territory of the Eastern Empire from both sides and choke the Eastern Empire's territory. This would cut off the Eastern Empire's trade. Even the option of using the teleportation array would be cut off, as the 7 great oceanic empires have something that can prevent teleportation arrays from working. Right now, the death of the former emperor has internally divided the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. The royal family, and the powerful nobles supporting the royal families, all have entered into a conflict with each other. This left the throne empty. And without an emperor to lead them, the Northern Frost Dragon Empire wouldn't even stand a chance against the combined force of the 7 oceanic empires. Once they capture the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, they can easily launch an attack on the Eastern Empire's territory. Even if they don't attack, the Eastern Empire would be constantly under the threat of an attack. The oceanic forces would be able to attack anytime they feels like. And the combined forces of the 7 oceanic empires, Aditya is not sure if he can stop them. What the oceanic forces were doing is a big threat to the Eastern Empire. Nathan, can you please call Spencer for me? I think my Prime Minister needs to hear this. His opinion will help us out. Spencer is a very talented young man. As the Prime Minister of the Eastern Empire, he deserves to know this and give his opinion on this whole matter. Nathan nodded his head. The next second he disappeared like the wind. Aditya remained sitting in his private study room. He was deeply thinking about the entire situation. The more the Eastern Empire expands, the more enemies that Eastern Empire will have in the future. It has become a very common thing for the Eastern Empire to be at war every few months. These last few people, Aditya has been increasing the number of Dragonians. Now every city, every town, and every village in the Eastern Empire was protected by the Dragonians. The Dragonians were spread throughout every single settlement within Empire. The cities were protected by peak 3rd order or mid 3rd order Dragonians. The towns were protected by peak 2nd order or beginner 3rd order Dragonians. While the villages were guarded by new Dragonians who have just reached 2nd order. The number of Dragonians currently in the Eastern Empire is over 11,000. Among the 11,000, less than 1,000 of them had managed to reach peak 3rd order. The majority of the Dragonians were 2nd order cultivators. One thing to note, Leo was the strongest and most talented Dragonians. While Watson was Aditya's very first Dragonian. In the eyes of the outside world, the Eastern Empire has been recruiting a large number of soldiers. Even the soldiers that once worked for the Southern Fire Dragon Empire now proudly worked for the Eastern Empire. The previous generals of the Southern Fire Dragon Empire who had helped the Eastern Empire now had become nobles. Aditya has given them a small piece of land, and the right to govern their territory. The current structure of the empire was very stable. The chances of a civil war breaking out even if tomorrow Aditya suddenly disappears is next to zero. The Eastern Empire has become the home of the dragons. Any being possessing even a single drop of a dragon bloodline is welcomed at the Eastern Empire. It is very normal for the citizens to see dragons now and then. Previously the Storm Empire and the Ageless Islands Empire had allied with the Southern Fire Dragon Empire. While the Mist Ocean and the Cloud Earth Empire allied with the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. I didn't expect these 4 empires to join hands along with the other 3 oceanic empires. What could possibly make these 7 empires put their differences behind them and join hands? The answer was very simple. It was not land that they wanted. It was mana stones. The southern region is filled with mana stone mines. Previously all 7 ocean empires relied on both dragon empires for their supply of mana stones. But now they want to take advantage of the chaotic situation in Northern Frost Empire to invade the southern region. Aditya can understand their motive and their interest. The problem is, the combined power of the 7 empires is too great even for the Eastern Empire. Aditya wasn't even sure if he can take on all the 5th order cultivators from all 7 empires. No matter how powerful I become after using my stats boosting skills, at the end of the day, I am still a mid 3rd order cultivator. When surrounded by 10 or 15 5th order cultivators, even I will fall short. Not to mention the powerful siege weapons that they have. In this war, the southern region land will be heavily damaged. In the end, regardless of which side wins, the land will be heavily damaged and millions of people will be left to starve or will become homeless. Although Aditya took over the Southern Fire Dragon Empire, he has done everything in his power to keep the civilians out of their conflict. He had strictly ordered no one to harm any civilians. Those who break this order will be heavily punished. Now I am left with 2 options. Knock. No, need to knock. Come inside. We will need to talk. Opening the door, Spencer and Nathan walked in. Aditya signaled both of them to sit on the couch opposite him. Nathan, did you explain the situation to Spencer? Nathan nodded his head. Spencer, what do you think of this entire situation? Aditya asked. Your Majesty, I would say that in this situation, we prevent the 7 empires from even coming to the southern region. The combined power of the 7 empires is something that I cannot even begin to imagine. If such a big military force starts a war on the southern region, the entire region will be in chaos. Millions will flee to the Eastern Empire's territory. Millions will die, millions will become homeless, and millions will become suffer. In the end, the southern region will become a barren land of chaos. I agree with you. I would suggest that before the 7 empires could come to the southern region, we create a blockage for them. Blockage? Nathan and Spencer exchanged a look of surprise. Let me explain. The Seekers of Impurity Guild is spread throughout the 7 empires. We can easily infiltrate the western region and start a fight among themselves. Aditya wanted to divert the 7 empires' attention and create a crack in their alliance. This will buy the southern region more time and also will hopefully keep the 7 empires busy for the next few years or maybe for the next few decades. If everything went right, then maybe the alliance between them will also break. For the next few hours, Aditya, Spencer, and Nathan were inside Aditya's private study room. The 3 of them talked about various things. 4 hours later, Spencer and Nathan left Aditya's private study room. Aditya went to have dinner with others. At the dining table, Aditya and others were surprised by the change in Leo. For the first time, everyone had seen him smile openly. The cold look on his face had disappeared. He now looked like a different man. The dark aura that surrounded him was replaced with a bright cheerful aura. The happiest one about this change was Leo's little sister Clara. Julia also looked very happy as for months she has been trying to bring changes within Leo. There are a few reasons why Julia cares so much about Leo. One of those reasons is that, when she and Aditya met Leo and his little sister, she has been wanting to help them out in her own way. The second reason, staying in the same castle or palace for so many months, has brought Julia closer to Clara and Leo. Leo was just like her little brother. Julia had started to see Clara and Leo as her siblings. Imagining her little brother becoming this kind of man hurt her. And the third reason is something to do with Aditya. She knew that Aditya has recognized Leo as his little brother though it hasn't been made official yet. As Aditya's future wife, she must do everything in her power to treat her husband's brother with kindness. From next week onwards, Leo is going to start attending school. Leo, you're not allowed to object to my decision. Clara looked very happy with the news. But on the other hand, Leo looked grumbled in a low sound. Fine. Aditya can understand that Leo did not enjoy being around kids around his age. Pressure has forced him to become a mature man at a very early age. While this maturity had its advantages, in some cases, especially when interacting with kids around his age, Leo found it very boring. Almost all the nobles' kids of his age would be focused on enjoying their lives. Those kids didn't have to carry the burden that he carried on his shoulders. This is for your own good. Socializing is a form of very important training. If you don't socialize, you won't develop communication skills. Without communication skills, you can't become a great person. Who knows, by attending school, you might even find the love of your life. He never expected Leo to actually blush. Oh, my. It seems our Leo has already found someone. Leo, if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to come to Big Sister. Big Sister will always help you out. Rhea, Alicia, Julia, Watson, Nathan, Spencer, Amber, Scott, Josh, Eleanor, Tyler, Henry, and Aditya all smiled looking at Leo. I haven't found anyone. Leo raised his voice and denied it. But he didn't dare to look at anyone's faces. Instead, his face turned even red. Brother, don't lie. A few weeks ago, I saw you slightly smiling while looking at the daughter of Sir Marvin Sarlis. Aditya raised an eyebrow upon hearing Clara's words. He then looked at Leo. Only to see steams coming out of his head. His head was red as a tomato. Daughter of Duke Sarlis? Aditya closed his eyes. He had not met the daughter or anyone from Duke Sarlis's family. Duke Sarlis is always so serious that it's hard to socialize with him. Nowadays, all the children of the nobles attend the school that Aditya has built in Azure City. Plenty of foreign royals, dynasties, and empires sent their children to study here. It wasn't a surprise that Leo has seen Duke Sarlis's daughter who was one class above Leo's sister. If I remember correctly, Sir Sarlis's daughter is very beautiful. She is nothing like her father who is always serious. She is said to be gentle as spring yet she can become merciless when she is angered. Aditya even remembered someone telling him that, unlike Duke Sarlis who had a face of a lion, his daughter's face looked completely like a human's. Duke Sarlis is a very close ally to the Eastern Empire. Even back when the Eastern Empire had nothing, that man stayed loyal to the kingdom and the throne. If there was a position above the rank of Duke, would have offered that position to that man. I think marrying Leo to his daughter would be an excellent choice. Duke Sarlis and Duke Zane are the only 2 nobles whom Aditya trusted to the point that he didn't bind them with a soul-binding contract. Aditya knew that both dukes would rather die than leak information to the enemy. If I remember correctly, Sir Sarlis once told me that many nobles had begun asking for his daughter's hand in marriage. But he refused. Aditya looked at Leo who was also looking at him. Sir Sarlis wants his son-in-law to be someone who is brave, courageous, strong, and rightful. If someone manages to fulfill all these conditions then there is a chance that person will get the opportunity of marrying the daughter of Duke Sarlis. Just as Aditya said those words, he and others saw Leo's dark blue pupil burning in flames of determination. At least, he has found things that can help him move forward in life. Really thank you very much to all the... My brother is courageous and very strong. He is kind to the weak. He perfectly matches the criteria. Clara said in an excited tone. Seeing this others just smile and did not add any comment. Everyone has to admit that the presence of this little girl in the Dragon Palace has brightened things. Despite losing her parents and being forced to run away from her homeland, Clara's personality still remained innocent and kind. This only goes on to show just how much burden Leo was carrying for his sister. No matter how bad the situation got, he didn't let his sister lose her smile. By the way, I have something to inform everyone. Everyone looked at Julia. What is it? Tomorrow, my parents and my little brother are planning to come to the Dragon Palace. Really? Aditya became the most serious one. This was the first time Julia's parents were going to visit them. Yes, Julia confirmed his doubt. Aditya looked at Watson. The former acting prime minister instantly understood his task and quickly nodded his head. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I will prepare everything to their liking. Just leave everything to me. Aditya nodded his head. When father and mother will come? Evening. All right. After dinner, Aditya went back to his bedroom. Watson went to make preparation for Julia's parents' arrival. Leo, Julia, and Clara went to Clara's bedroom. From time to time, Julia, Alicia, and Ria helped Clara with her homework. Since Leo was going to join the school, Julia was planning on giving him some books which would help him. The half-wolf named Sky also went along with Clara and others. After dinner, Ria used the teleportation array to head back to the celestial terrain. She had to take care of something. Alicia went back to her bedroom and started cultivating. These days the goddess focused more on her cultivation as she didn't want to become a burden to Aditya. As for the 7 generals, all of them went back to their respective rooms except for Nathan. Following Aditya's orders, he used the Seekers of Impurity Guild to teleport to Mist Ocean Empire. As for others, after returning to their rooms, using the pills that Julia created for them, they began to cultivate. Scene changed to the western region of the dying Al continent ______. Nathan, following the orders of his king, teleported to the city named Blazing Sword City. The Blazing Sword City was built on a small island that used to be occupied by kobolds. After defeating the kobold, the city was built. The city was named after the name of sword that the hero used to kill the half-dragon kobold. No one really knows who this hero is. The townsfolk began to call that man their hero as he had given them a new home. This happened almost 1,000 years ago. To this day, the story of a mysterious hero defeating the half-dragon kobold with a blazing sword is very popular among the Blazing Sword City citizens. The city had a population of 430,567. The locals lived mostly by fishing or farming. Other than the tale of a hero, this city had nothing special to offer. Well, that was the case in the eyes of nobles. But for the common people, this city was an ideal place to live. Every year many commoners come here to live. Even the governor who ruled this city was very kind to his people. The tax was very low and the crime rate of the city wasn't that high either. Nathan walked out of the Seekers of Impurity Guild branch office. He used the Seekers of Impurity Guild branch office's teleportation array to this city. In this way, Nathan won't have to worry about making a fake identity trying to enter the city. He can just directly teleport inside the city. Walking out of the guild branch office, Nathan began to walk on the streets. His whole body was covered under a brown dirty cloak. The hood covered his face. After walking for more than 20 minutes, Nathan managed to find the familiar alley. This alley looked completely ordinary. Walking inside the dirty alley, Nathan found 10 to 15 homeless people sitting in the alley. Upon a closer look, he can see just as he walked to this alley, all of those homeless people had turned their attention to him. Secretly, these homeless people had taken out their knives. Alley guardians. Their job is to silence any intruder who might have found information about the organization and has come here to investigate. No one would think that these skinny and dirty-looking homeless people are actually trained assassins. Before Nathan was sold as a slave, he worked as an assassin. In this assassin career, Nathan has heard the name of a certain powerful assassin organization. That organization is said to be so powerful that, in the underworld, that organization is considered the most terrifying and deadly organization. The mysterious organization had no name. Rather, the organization's name was only known to the members of the organization. The organization had a 100% success rate. No one can escape the organization's target. Without saying words, Nathan took out a royal gold coin and gently threw it at one of the homeless people. The secret assassin caught the royal gold coin and then looked at Nathan. I have a job request. At this moment Nathan was on his guard. He knew if these people found even a small detail suspicious about him, they then will strike him down. Even though Nathan is considered to be the second most powerful general of the Eastern Empire, even he won't be able to escape if he was attacked here. What request? Who is the target? Nathan simply took out a paper from his storage ring and threw it at one of the homeless people. Grabbing the white paper and after the name of the target, they all widened their eyes in shock. This is going to be expensive. Are you sure you can afford this huge amount? Let me warn you, if you think that you can get away without paying all the amount, then you're dead wrong. The homeless people had the impression that Nathan might not be rich given his dirty and old cloak. Money was never a problem. Just name the amount. You wait here. Soon one of the assassins who was pretending to be a homeless beggar disappeared with the white paper that Nathan has given him. Nathan did not leave. He stood there in his position, not moving an inch for more than 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, the assassin finally returned. The assassin stood in front of Nathan and asked, "Before we agree to take your mission, first give us your identity. If you dare to disguise yourself, then you and the people behind you will regret it." Very well. Nathan removed the hood covering his face. As the hood fell, a face that was covered with a black mask appeared before everyone. Nathan then took out the seal of the Eastern Empire and showed it to the assassins. For a few seconds, the assassins looked surprised. But they soon calmed down. Nathan didn't need to hide his identity. Before coming here, he had long known that he would have to expose his identity. He also knew that the organization's mouth was tightly sealed. No information about them would be leaked. What is the price? Nathan knew that this assassin had gone back to his base to ask his superior's opinion. In the underworld, every person's head had a price. There were also certain figures whom the assassin organization didn't wish to offend or kill. But the mysterious organization had a reputation for killing anyone as long as the right money was offered. 51 million gold coins. We will do the first and then come for the payment. The job should be done within 24 hours. 24 hours later, you better come here and give the money. Don't make us find you otherwise, the Eastern Empire will regret it. Just as the assassin threatened the Eastern Empire, Nathan's killing intent almost leaked out. This fool dares to threaten the Eastern Empire. Who does he think he is? I could have done this job. Why are we hiring these dogs? Your Majesty, what are you planning? Aditya didn't want the Eastern Empire's name to become dirty, which is why he asked Nathan to hire a third party for this job. Really, thank you very much to all those who send support with value. The next day The month of winter was approaching its end. The white blanket of snow was slowly beginning to melt. The temperature of the dying isle, West Nia, and the celestial terrain was slowly turning warmer. The magic animals that have entered into hibernation were slowly waking up from their deep slumber and were beginning to look around for food. Some trees were already beginning to grow their leaves, and plants started to grow flowers. This was the end time of winter. Everything was very peaceful in Azure City. A few weeks ago, Aditya came up with a new array formation. It was a type of array formation that would keep the entire Azure City slightly warmer compared to the outside world. As of now, he still hasn't made this array in other cities as he was busy. Thanks to all the measures that Aditya has taken and thanks to everyone's hard work, this year, only 11 people died in Azure City. Compared to the previous year, this number has gone down drastically. Even in other Eastern Empire cities, the number of deaths is almost negligible if one were to compare this to the previous years. Everything was going according to Aditya's plan. The Eastern Empire was rapidly developing under his rule. The people of the empire were very happy mainly due to several factors. The food had become cheap and affordable for everyone. The crime rate has drastically gone down. There was hardly any corruption. Good morning, Scott. The goddess of nature approached Scott an hour after they finished breakfast. Good morning, Lady Tombrook. Just like Aditya was respected by every dragon in this world as he was the dragon monarch, all the elves in this world respected the goddess of nature. Scott was also the same. Elves held the goddess of nature in very high regard. In celestial terrain, Rhea is extremely popular and influential. If any foreigner even dares to say any disrespectful word to their goddess, the elves would hunt that foreigner and would mercilessly kill them. The elves of the celestial terrain wouldn't tolerate any disrespect towards their goddess. Elves were lovers of nature. Elves are very different from other races. After dragon and vampire races, elves were one of the strongest races in the whole world. Every elf worships the nature goddess. Elves would do anything to protect nature even if it means starting a war. There were even many elven tribes that were strict vegetarians. These tribes wouldn't hunt any wild magic animals. After Rhea was born, she was slowly able to change this perception of her elven people. Rhea saw hunting animals as a natural law of nature. The food chain was created by the nature to balance everything. Every plant and animal species, whether big or small, depends on another plant or animal species to some extent for its survival. In the eyes of the elven people, Rhea was the reincarnation of the elven goddess. All the elven people followed whatever Rhea told them. Scott, who was the leader of the 1st Army Division, didn't dare to say the goddess's first name. He instead called her by her family name. The amount of respect that Scott had for Rhea is immense. When Scott learned that Rhea was the goddess of nature, he instantly kneeled before her and asked for forgiveness for not being able to recognize her. For the past few months, Scott has been seeing Rhea in the Dragon Palace. Her kindness only increased the respect that he had for the goddess. Lady Tombrook, you do need anything from me? Scott was going to train the new recruits in his division. Scott, why are you always so serious? Rhea wanted Scott to relax around her. It seems what she wanted was impossible. Rhea has said these words a few times in the past, but Scott never changed. He is always very serious. Lady Tombrook, do you need anything from me? Scott asked. Scott, can you please send one of your men to the celestial terrain? I am planning on growing magic fruit. I need someone to get me the seeds of the magic fruit. Rhea wanted to grow magic fruits for the Eastern Empire. Each magic fruit had great benefits. Not only a magic fruit temporarily increased a cultivator's cultivation speed, but it also increased one of the random stats of a cultivator by 50+. Rhea gave Scott a letter that she had personally written. Taking the letter, Scott saw Rhea's signature on the letter along with the royal seal of the Tombrook family. Just show this letter to my maid and she will do the rest. Rhea's maid wanted to come and live with her. But Rhea refused. Every day, her maid would send her letters asking how she was doing. Alright. I will send one of the elven soldiers in my division to do the job. The reason Rhea approached Scott is that he was a dark elf and his division had the most number of elves. Thank you, Scott. Milady, there is no need to thank me for something small as this. If you need anything else, just let me know. Rhea nodded her head with a smile. From the balcony, Aditya watched the interaction between Rhea and Scott. This reminds me. Julia doesn't have her own personal maid yet. Neither do Leo and others have their own personal maids. I should talk to Watson regarding this. Having a personal maid was necessary. This kind of task is usually done by Rhea's personal maid. Aditya then left the balcony. A moment later, using the teleportation array, he teleported to the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Zolas was one of the medium-sized cities located in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. The city was located at the center of the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Today Aditya has come here for a reason. The current ongoing civil war in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire is a very concerning factor for the Eastern Empire. Especially after learning that the Western region's 7 empires had their eyes set on the Southern region, Aditya knew that the ongoing throne succession fight in this empire must be ended as soon as possible and the whole empire must be united. Though Aditya has managed to delay the invasion of 7 empires by pulling a few strings from the dark, this won't always work. What if tomorrow, another big powerful force tries to enter the Southern region? And what if that powerful force takes over the Northern Frost Dragon Empire? When that happens, the Eastern Empire will have an enemy at its borders. Besides the threat of foreign attack, Aditya also wanted to maintain a strong influence within the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. At first, he planned on taking over the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, but that all changed after he realized that compared to its vast size, the empire was too weak. The current Eastern Empire was already huge. It was probably one of the biggest empires on the planet in terms of size. But to protect all of its territories, a huge force is needed, something that the Eastern Empire currently lacked. Just 10,000 Dragonians alone won't be enough. So Aditya wanted to take time to first make his military stronger before aiming to conquer more land. Also, to become a global powerhouse, the empire needed strong allies. The Northern Frost Dragon Empire had the potential to become a strong ally. The Eastern Empire was going to secretly help the 5th prince to become the emperor of the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Of course, the help Aditya was going to provide isn't going to be free. Today he was here to negotiate with the 5th prince. If both of them manage to find a common ground, then Aditya will help the 5th prince become the next emperor. Doing this would benefit the Eastern Empire in multiple ways. First of all, the Eastern Empire won't have any threat from the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Rather, the Northern Frost Dragon Empire would become one of the biggest allies of the Eastern Empire. So in case a foreign force wants to invade the Southern region, both empires can unite and defend the Southern region. An alliance between both empires would make trade 100 times easier and faster. Aditya would have a strong influence on the Northern Frost Dragon Empire and Emperor. This would help the Eastern Empire immensely in the long run. Only a very certain number of people knows where the 5th prince is hiding. After the death of the White Dragon King, just as the throne succession fight started, all the princes and princesses turned against each other. The royal family was divided into many parts. Among all of his brothers and sisters, the 5th prince had the least political power. As a result, the 5th prince had no choice but to hide somewhere. Fortunately, the Shadow Guardians were able to find the 5th prince's hiding location. Aditya looked at the 2-story wooden house in front of him. The 5th prince lived in this ordinary wooden house and no one knew it except for the people who worked for him. So how did you find me? The 5th prince was a handsome young man of Aditya's age and his height. He was a peak second-order cultivator. He had white hair just like the White Dragon King. He had brown pupils and pale white skin that almost made others believe that he was a vampire, but in reality he was not. Such a silly question. If there is anyone in this continent who can find your location, it has to be me. Aditya replied with a smile. Presently, the Eastern Emperor and the 5th son of the White Dragon King were sitting in the living room. Aditya's visit surprised and also shocked the 5th prince and his men who were here to protect him. Aditya was almost attacked by the 5th prince's bodyguards. Fortunately, the 5th prince stopped them in time, otherwise, Aditya definitely would have killed a few of them. I have been keeping a watch on you for a few months. In these 2.5 months, you have been slowly trying to expand your influence from the shadows. You have eliminated the people who could become your obstacle from behind the scenes. I like the way how you targeted the people from the church. I am very impressed. Surely the Eastern Emperor is not here to just praise me for what I have done in the last 2.5 months' time. Today, I am here to do business. A deal that will benefit both of us. A deal that will help you realize your dreams, and a deal that will turn the Eastern Empire into the Northern Frost Dragon Empire's biggest ally and friend. What do you think? Hearing Aditya's words, the 5th prince looked very surprised. Even the butler and the dark elf maid standing behind the 5th prince looked very surprised. After a moment of silence, the 5th prince finally extended his right hand for a handshake. My name is Jordan. It's nice to meet you. Aditya shook hands with Jordan with a smile. By extending his right hand for a handshake and by introducing himself, Jordan was indirectly telling Aditya that he was interested in this deal. It's nice to meet you too. So your majesty, what exactly have you planned? I would like to know what is your offer. Jordan asked with a smile. Meanwhile, the dark elf standing behind Jordan walked to the kitchen. Before that, I would like to ask you a question if you don't mind. Seeing Jordan nodding his head, Aditya went ahead and asked the question. Did the death of your father impact you in any way? There were 2 main reasons why Aditya had specifically approached Jordan, not anyone else. The first reason was the relationship between Jordan and his father. The White Dragon King wasn't exactly a good father to his children. He was a playboy who had 5 wives and many women. It was a known fact that the emperor has slept with all the beautiful maids that worked in the royal castle. It was very unlikely that Jordan actually had any feelings for his father. Aditya had killed the White Dragon King. Although no one in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire knew this, there is a chance that in the future this information might get leaked. Even if Jordan learns this, he won't do anything to betray Aditya, as he has no feelings for his father. Among all of the children of the White Dragon King, Jordan and his young stepsister were the most ignored children. Both Jordan and his young stepsister only saw their father when they both were called to the throne hall. The second reason Aditya came to Jordan is because of his views against the people of the church. The White Dragon Emperor was a holy magic user. People even called him an archangel mainly because of his handsome appearance and his white wings. In the last 500 years, the White Dragon Emperor has allowed the church to grow in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. After 500 years, the church's influence expanded all over the empire. While a few of Jordan's siblings did things to please the church so that the church would support them to become the next ruler of the empire, Jordan did the opposite. He was able to see the ever-growing power of the church. Without the White Dragon King, there was no one else that could control the church. It wouldn't be wrong to say that the church indirectly controlled the entire empire as they had the support of all the citizens and they often portrayed themselves as a spirit of hope to the citizens. The church had the power of the power. They can change public opinion at their will. In some way, the church had too much soft power. And their soft power was even more threatening than empire's military. While the Northern Frost Dragon Empire can fight against any empire from outside using its military, the church's soft power had the terrifying ability to turn its own people against its king. The White Dragon King has raised a dog for 500 years. Upon his death, his dog has become the strongest thing in his empire. The Black Dragon King had long seen this. So in counter, the Black Dragon King had taken strict actions against the church so that the church can never influence the people of his empire. The Black Dragon King wasn't going to let a religion that have started in his biggest rival and enemy's empire spread to his empire. After the Eastern Empire took over, some people from the church came to Watson to spread their religion in the Eastern Empire. What the church wanted was to brainwash the masses in the name of spreading religion. Aditya knew that if he let the church enter his empire, within a few decades, even his standing as the emperor would be in danger by the church's terrifying power to influence the masses. For example, if he took any steps that were against the church's goals or if his actions indirectly harmed the church could declare Aditya as evil and turn public opinion against him. Many empires and kingdoms have fallen because of this. Under Aditya's orders, a few of the Dragonians beat the members of the church and sent them back to the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. The current existence of the church in the Dragon Empire is like the existence of a virus with the power to hypnotize people. After 500 years, almost every force within the empire had submitted to the church. The ones who didn't submit to the church were a few nobles who had seen the true face of the church and had been wanting to reveal the church's true face to the citizens of the empire. Jordan easily gained the support of those nobles as he was also against the church. Did the death of your father impact you in any way? This question could be a very heavy question for some who loved their father, but for Jordan, this question was silly. Even though both shared the same blood and were father and son, the relationship between them was very light. Jordan wasn't affected the least when he learned about the death of his father. He didn't even feel a thing. Jordan did not hate that man as he had given him everything. Growing up, the fifth prince never felt the need for a father figure as his mother had never let him feel the need for a father. Your Majesty, this is a very stupid question. I barely knew who my father was. Why do people expect me to shed tears for a person whom I barely knew? We have very few interactions. When he ordered me to do something as the emperor. Jordan was slightly angry at the fact that the people around him expected him to mourn for a person whom he barely knew. Yes, that man was his biological father, but that man never was a part of his life. Despite living in the same royal castle, Jordan and his father lived a very different life. Both only met at the throne hall, mostly when the emperor summoned his entire family for an important announcement. Unlike of some siblings who shed crocodile tears, I can't do that. I am not good at acting. Jordan was talking about his brothers and sisters who shed fake tears to gain sympathy. Your Majesty, now I would like you to answer my questions. Jordan respected Aditya more than he did his own biological father. Aditya has managed to accomplish more than what his father had taken accomplished in 500 years. There is no need to be so formal. After this meeting, we will be allies, so you can just call me by my name. Jordan just nodded his head. But Jordan's butler looked very surprised hearing this. Since Aditya was letting the fifth prince call him using his name, this showed that Aditya held Jordan in very high regard. Only someone worthy of Aditya's respect would be able to call him by his name. I will keep things simple. I will help you out. The Eastern Empire will help you out from the dark. You will be able to deal with the church and your siblings. You will just need to accept my hand. Meanwhile, the dark elf who was Jordan's personal maid returned from the kitchen. She returned with 2 cups of tea. But there is a catch, isn't it? You caught on quickly. I like that. When you become the emperor, the Eastern and the Northern Frost Dragon Empire will become allies. In exchange for all the help that the Eastern Empire will be providing you from the shadows when you become the emperor, you will have to give the ownership of 3 mana stone mines. Jordan, his butler, and his maid, all 3 widened their eyes in deep shock. Giving you 3 mana stone mines would be the same as crippling our own economy. This entire empire is dependent on the export of mana stones. If I give you the ownership of 3 mana stone mines, the empires will make a huge loss. I apologize, but you will have to lower your price. The price is just too big for me to afford. Nearly 91% of the empire's earnings came from the sale of mana stones. Not to mention the tons of gold that the empire saves from not having to import mana stones from foreign empires. If Jordan gives the ownership of 3 mana stone mines to the Eastern Empire, the empire's earnings will be reduced by 33%. Aditya fully knew that Jordan was going to refuse. Okay, fine. Just give me ownership of the Rosemire mine. On hearing Aditya's words, Jordan and his butler looked at each other and nodded their heads. All right. Seeing Jordan agreeing so easily, Aditya inwardly grinned as his plan had worked. Aditya wasn't going to get involved in the mess of the Northern Frost Dragon Empire for no reason. The Rosemire mine was the third largest mana stone mine in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Or at least that's what the public and most of the people believed. Even though the Rosemire mine is the third biggest mine, in terms of size, it was comparable to the second largest mine. Aditya has been after the Rosemire mine from the beginning. Of course, he wasn't going to demand the Rosemire mine from the beginning. He instead asked for 3 mines. Jordan had the option of giving any 3 mines to Aditya, as Aditya never specifically asked which mines he wanted. Jordan could have given him 3 small mines. Jordan failed to realize that from the beginning he had fallen under Aditya's scheme. Jordan was tricked without him even realizing it. If there was any reason why Aditya had entered into the mess of the southern region, it would be because of the mana stone mines. Now that he had given up on his goal of conquering the Northern Frost Dragon Empire, Aditya wanted to take at least one of their biggest mana stones. Now that his goal has been achieved, Aditya would make sure that Jordan becomes the next emperor as soon as possible. Good. It looks like we have a deal. Aditya then took out a contract. This was a 4-star soul binding that Aditya made himself. Jordan and his butler both read the contract a few times to make sure that there was nothing shady written on the contract. Aditya watched them in amusement as he drank tea. After reading the contract a few more times, Jordan signed the contract with the blood of his drop. Aditya also did the same. After the signing was done, Aditya gave Jordan an exact copy of the contract and then shook hands with him. From now on both of them were officially allies. And also with this, he was one step closer to dominating the southern region. Now as long as Jordan became the emperor, no one else in the southern region can oppose the Eastern Empire. This would also mean that the Eastern Empire would become the very first empire to control 2 massive regions of the continents. This was something that has never happened in the history of the dying Al continent. Jordan, I won't waste any more of your time. A few hours later, a group of 27 powerful cultivators will come. Each of the cultivators will be powerful third-order soldiers of the Eastern Empire. Keep them with you for 24 hours. I promise that even if there is an assassination, even an inch of your skin won't be harmed. Jordan nodded his head with a grateful look. Do you have any plans regarding how you're going to take out the church from this empire? The church was undoubtedly Jordan's biggest obstacle. Once the church is removed, Jordan's chances of becoming the emperor would increase drastically. I will take care of the church and keep you updated on the situation. While you take care of your siblings. If you need anything, just write me a letter. Aditya could assassinate Jordan's siblings using the Shadow Guardians and also remove the church, but if he does all the work for Jordan, then what he will do? Aditya is not his babysitter. He was here as an ally, not as a babysitter. Jordan must do some work and face some struggles. Only hard times can create a capable man. If he is not under pressure, he won't become a capable king. Alright. Once again, thank you for everything. There is no need for thanks. In a way, I am getting paid for this. Aditya wasn't lying. At most, it would take him from a few weeks to a month time to remove the church. In exchange, he was getting the ownership of a mana stone mine that is almost as big as the second largest mana stone mine in the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. The profit that Aditya will be earning from the mana stone mine is going to be in billions. Jordan, his butler, and his maid went out of their way to see Aditya out. After Aditya left, a new and much strong flame of determination burned in Jordan's eyes. Send this information to all our allies. Also, try to find out the location of my siblings. Before Aditya came to meet him, Jordan had almost given up on his dream of becoming the emperor. But Aditya's words had reignited the flames of his dream. The butler quietly nodded his head. Without making any sound, he then disappeared along with the wind. Now only Jordan and his maid were standing outside. Your Highness, do you think agreeing to give the ownership of a mana stone mine was the right choice? The dark elf asked Jordan from behind. Jordan did not reply. He instead gazed at the sky. After a moment of silence, he sighed and replied. I would say that giving the ownership of the mana stone mine is just a small price to keep the Eastern Empire away from this empire. It's a fortune that we can become their ally. Aditya has the power to take this empire at any given time. Instead of losing the entire empire to the Eastern King, it is better to give up one mana stone mine. Also, it's not like we're not going to benefit from this alliance. We now have a very powerful ally. This alliance would bring us countless benefits. I would even say that it is a big fortune for our empire that he personally came for an alliance. Scene change _________. Meanwhile, Aditya easily returned to Azure City using the teleportation function of the Dragon Palace. The teleportation function gave him the ability to teleport back to the Dragon Palace or any place within 25 kilometers range of the Dragon Palace from any place on the planet. It was a very useful ability. Even if Aditya's life is in danger and he is surrounded by enemies, he can easily teleport back to the Dragon Palace. Aditya teleported to the old royal castle where he used to live before building the Dragon Palace. Even though Aditya didn't live here anymore, many others lived here. More than 100 servants stayed here just to keep the royal castle clean. Your Majesty, what are you doing here? Watson asked. Watson thought Aditya had gone to the southern region to meet the fifth prince. Even Aditya was surprised to see Watson here. I was done with my meeting a few hours earlier than I had initially thought. I decided to come here and see if the palace is being maintained properly. This place was filled with memories. It was the place from where Aditya started his journey. In the beginning, it was him, Watson, and Julia. This palace used to be very small, old, shabby, broken and filled with cracks. But with time everything has changed. Now this palace is one of the most beautiful things in this city. What are you doing here? I had some free time. I thought I should come here and see if everything is being maintained and cleaned thoroughly. Sometimes, I kind of miss this place. By the way, Watson, a few months ago, I talked to you about finding someone to settle down. Have you thought about it? Watson stood 2 steps behind Aditya and looked at the sky. Your Majesty, I am happy with my current life. I have everything that I can wish for. All of my wishes have been fulfilled. I really don't see a need of getting married. Starting a family would only get in my way of doing my duties. Aditya took 2 steps back and then put his arm on Watson's right shoulder. Having a family isn't a curse. It's a blessing. It's the most fulfilling thing that a man can have. You just need to balance your family and your job. Besides, even if you marry, your wife will stay with us, together. One thing that Aditya always regretted in his previous life was the fact that he never found a family. His head and his heart were so messed up that he used to think that a family is nothing but a curse. It would become his weakness. But he was very wrong. Living as Aditya for more than 8.5 months has forced him to change his thoughts. Watson deeply thought about what Aditya said. After thinking for a while, Watson nodded his head. I give it a try. But I will only marry if I find someone who can understand me and not become my burden. My job will always remain my first priority. Aditya smiled and said nothing else. While the eastern and southern regions were at peace mainly because of the Eastern Empire. A big storm was coming in the western region island empires. For the first time in many years, all the 7 emperors have agreed on something together. All the 7 empires' troops have been moving. Even the citizens noticed that all the 7 empires were preparing for a massive war. The same thing was happening in the Mist Ocean Empire's capital. The Mist Sword City was the capital of the Mist Ocean Empire. The entire Mist Sword City was located in a very unique place. The whole capital was turned into a massive island by artificially creating a large river around it. The sky was getting darker. It was the time of sunset. The people who lived in Sword Mist City were returning home after a long day of hard work. Only 1% of the total population of the Mist Ocean Empire called the Sword Mist City their home. The rest 99% mostly lived on other islands. In the darkness, 3 assassins moved through the Sword City. Without wasting any time, the 3 assassins appeared in front of the royal palace. Unlike other royal palaces that are built at the center of the city, the royal palace was built on the northern edge of the city. The 3 assassins easily managed to sneak inside the royal palace without anyone even noticing them. Not even the 5th Order Guardian Cultivator who always stayed in the royal palace to make sure that no one would be able to sneak inside couldn't sense these assassins' presence. When the assassins moved they moved without making any noise. When they jumped, they landed on the ground without making any noise. They communicated with each other in sign language. All 3 of them wore black clothes that almost made them invisible in the darkness. All 3 of the assassins was master at using dark magic. 3 of the assassins were able to hide in the shadows of other people. Without anyone noticing, the 3 of them were able to sneak into the bedroom of the princess of the Mist Ocean Empire. Not even the old emperor who was known for his sensory abilities was able to sense these assassins. When the 3 assassins entered, the princess was reading a history book while one of her maids massaged her shoulders. Without wasting any time, the assassins appeared behind the maid. Before anyone could react or feel anything, a sharp dagger cut the maid's throat. To prevent the maid from screaming or making any noise, the assassin covered her mouth with his hand. While the other 2 assassins knocked the princess out by striking on her neck. First phase of the job is done. Now, the second phase of the plan will begin. The first assassin spoke to the other 2 assassins using sign language. The other assassins nodded their heads. Only 10 more seconds remain. They communicated using sign language. When 10 seconds passed, a huge explosion took place near the royal palace. Boom! The explosion was so big that it shook the entire Sword Mist City for a second. The sky was lit up with crimson-red flames. The screams of the people were heard all over the city. Even those who had gone to sleep or the cultivators were just cultivating had to open their eyes and see what was happening. Just as the explosion took place, the Guardian and the Emperor both went out of the royal palace to see what happened. Just as this happened, one of the assassins picked up the princess on his shoulders. Then the 3 of them nodded their heads and disappeared. The assassins avoided coming in the range of strong soldiers or people in the royal palace. Whenever they went past a maid or a soldier, they would swiftly kill that person. While everyone was distracted, the princess of the Mist Ocean had been kidnapped without anyone noticing. By the time when the Emperor and others would know this, the assassins had long gotten out of the Mist Ocean Empire. After kidnapping the princess, the next second, assassins went to the Ageless Islands Empire. Using their connections, they managed to enter the capital of the Ageless Islands Empire. The Ageless Islands were the neighbor of the Mist Ocean Empire and also their rival. The relationship between both empires had recently become worse after the Ageless Islands supported the Southern Fire Dragon Empire and the Mist Ocean supported the Northern Frost Dragon Empire. Even the 5th Order commanders sent by both empires were killed by each other's side. The alliance between the 7 great empires had put this rising tension between these 2 neighbors on hold. According to what the client demanded, the assassins created a fake scenario where Ageless Island is responsible for the attack on the Mist Ocean capital and the kidnapping of their princess. The assassins did not harm the princess. What they did was leave the princess in the bedroom of the Ageless Island's commander with 3 dead bodies. These 3 dead bodies were wanted criminals belonging to the Ageless Islands. These 3 men were experts at sneaking and hiding. The last task of the assassins was to inject a special kind of venom into the princess's blood, so that the princess would be killed 3 hours later. Later, when the Emperor of the Mist Ocean found out that his daughter has been kidnapped, someone gave him the news of this was done by Ageless Island. The furious Emperor instantly sent his Prime Minister to Ageless Island to demand their princess back with compensation. Meanwhile, the Ageless Island Emperor found out that his commander had kidnapped the princess, but was refusing to admit it even though the evidence suggested something else. The Emperor was furious that his commander's reckless actions had earned him the fury of the Mist Ocean Emperor. To make matters worse, before the princess could be given back, she unexpectedly died. Even though the Ageless Islands tried to cover this news, the news was somehow leaked to the ears of the Mist Ocean. That's we are going to war. I don't about anything anymore. This bastard not only dared to kidnap my daughter but also kill her. I will make him pay by killing all of his children. The Mist Ocean Emperor only had a single daughter whom he greatly loved, and now that his daughter was dead, he had no more family. Meanwhile, at the Ageless Island Empire, someone is definitely trying to frame the Ageless Island. The Emperor understood after seeing the death of the princess. But he knew that at this stage no one would believe in his words. As previously he had put the blame on his commander and had put him in prison. But now what he will say to the Mist Ocean Emperor? How did the princess die? Even if he says that this was done to start a war, the Mist Ocean Emperor wouldn't believe his words. Even if he says that someone had poisoned the princess, the other emperors would say that he purposely poisoned the princess to make it look like someone else had done it. Fuck it. I will just fight back. I am not afraid of that bastard and his pathetic army. Prepare for war. By midnight, the 2 empires' armies had been sent out. Both of them first attacked each other ports and trade routes. Both emperors attacked the merchants of both empires. In this situation, the remaining 5 other empires had to take some actions. In the end, 3 of the empires chose to remain neutral and not get involved in this war, while the Storm Empires and the Cloud Earth Empires both joined the war and began to send their troops. Within just a single night, the Western Island Empires went through chaotic changes. The flames of war had spread throughout the Western region. While all culprit behind all this was having a peaceful dinner with Julia's family. Julia's family had come to meet Aditya this evening.